Return to the past with a warehouse. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, The Solution to the Robbers. The lawyer recommended by Mr. Huang was named Zhu. When Li Ju was taking classes at home, Lawyer Zhu had already taken care of all the affairs of the county government. When Li Ju remembered to ask about the situation in the prison, Wang Dezhen called Lawyer Zhu to report it to Li Ju one by one. In Lawyer Zhu's opinion, this matter was as easy as pie. There were both witnesses and evidence, and there were two big guys among the witnesses, so there was no way to turn the tables. The law was clear and clear. What crime was committed, how the principal offender was sentenced, and how the accomplice was sentenced. It was written in black and white without any ambiguity. The local magistrate Wang, who was in charge of the local government, naturally favored Li Ju. Li Ju's family was rich, and the other party was not only poor, but also not even a registered permanent resident of the county. When a local and an outsider had a lawsuit, they would mostly have to consider the local sentiment. Li Ju had this sentiment, and he had an advantage over the gangsters. Li Ju also meant to be impartial, and he had no requests beyond the law. No matter how he calculated, Li Ju had an absolute advantage, and whether he found a lawyer or not would not affect the final result. Lawyer Zhu had been a lawyer for so many years, and he had never seen such a simple case, so he was a little nervous when he took the money. When Li Ju asked about the situation, Lawyer Zhu was afraid that there was something wrong, so he explained it to Li Ju one by one from the royal laws and local precedents. In the middle, he naturally brought in the confessions of those in prison. The first criminal Li Yaoniang died the next day due to severe injuries. He had one arm cut off by Li Ju, and it was reasonable that he died of blood loss and hypothermia. Li Ju could not say that he had any guilt or disappointment. The mute was also seriously injured and almost died. Since Li Yaoniang dared to attack his family, he should have anticipated such consequences. Lawyer Zhu also said, "This is good." According to the law, if he argues that he is a displaced person and steals to support the orphans, he will be sentenced to hanging at most, and most likely just imprisonment or caning. It would be easier if he died. Li Ju said, "There are many displaced people in the world. How can everyone steal to make a living? Moreover, they carry weapons and rob people openly. Let's not talk about others. Even the people in our family, who didn't have nowhere to go, and almost starved to death. But they are all honest people, and dare not break the law." The lawyer said, "What the master said is right." Li Ju asked again, "What do your accomplices say?" The lawyer said, "I was just about to report this to the master." According to the confession of the accomplice, they planned not only to rob the master, but also to set fire to the house and threaten the family property. The neighbors near the master all have wooden houses. Recently, the east wind is strong, but there is no rain. If someone sets the house on fire, how can the fire not spread? Fortunately, the master is brave and a man-made disaster was avoided. The county magistrate is also very scared after questioning him. Not to mention County Magistrate Wang, Li Ju was also scared to death. The weather is good with clear skies and a clear sky, probably because of the sinking of the outer edge of the typhoon. If someone sets the house on fire, it will be difficult to deal with it with the existing firefighting capabilities. Damn it, it's just the autumn harvest, and the grain in every household's granary is this year's taxes and next year's food. If it's burned, wouldn't the family be destroyed? The lawyer said, "That's right, that's why the county magistrate hates them so much," and he asked further questions, but he didn't expect to ask other things. It turned out that there were several other accomplices whose testimonies corroborated each other, which was enough to prove that they were definitely not desperate to make a living, and took the risk, but they had scouted the area in advance, and were confident of getting rich overnight. The leaders were all from Yu County, who were Jia County in the south. They were used to being domineering in their hometown, not working and causing trouble for the people. Fortunately, they were dealt with by the master, otherwise who knows how many people would have suffered. There are also several murders in Huajia County involved in this, and the county magistrate has sent an official letter to Huajia County, probably meaning to settle new and old scores together. Li Ju frowned. They even scouted the area, but I didn't even know or notice it. It shows that my family is lazy. The lawyer said, not entirely. The master has many servants, and they found someone to blend in with the temporary workers, making it hard to guard against them. The master could see the strangers outside, but he couldn't see that his own temporary workers had rebelled. This time they found a pair of brothers and sisters to be the insiders, and they knocked out the gatekeepers first, so that they could pass through without any obstruction. What can people say? Until now, the two brothers and sisters are still wearing the new clothes given by you, the master. They really repay kindness with enmity. As the lawyer spoke, he specially copied the confessions of Wei Qi and Wei Bei for Li Ju and others to see. Wang Dechen, who was listening to them, stretched his neck to take a look, and his old face blushed. It's my fault for not recognizing people, and I brought disaster to my house. He wanted to argue with him, and he also felt that the brother and sister were a bit fierce and not easy to deal with. After all, it was hindsight, and it was useless to say anything, but it seemed that they were deliberately shirking responsibility. Li Ju said, it's none of your business. Even if you were the one who confessed, I was at fault for nodding my head and not finding a way to save him. As the saying goes, if a tiger or a rhinoceros escapes from its cage, it's the fault of the guard. Wang Dechen pounded the table angrily and said, the host's house has good food and good tea. It's like heaven, but they still do such a thing. I don't know what they want. If it were someone else, such as Ada or Yaoniang, let alone feeding them well and wearing good clothes, as long as they were fed and not scolded, they would be completely loyal. In my opinion, the most hateful one is the principal offender, followed by these two little traitors. Li Ju said, everyone has their own aspirations. We are willing to work for money, but some people just want to sit back and enjoy the fruits of their labor. This is human nature. There are also many long-term workers who are lazy and are not rehired. But after all, they have too little experience and only care about the present, but not the long term. This is because they have not kept up with their education, or they have not read enough books, and have not learned how to behave. It seems that some truths still need to be broken down, and explained to them clearly. The lawyer copied out the confessions of the brother and sister, of course, not to teach his future colleague Wang Dechen. Master, how do you think we should deal with these two brother and sister? Just deal with them according to the law. The national law comes first, and the county magistrate is in charge. You and I don't have to do this or that. Li Ju didn't care about these things at all. He just asked Lawyer Zhu to do things normally. Speaking of which, they are not very old, are they? The lawyer said, it is said that they are only about 11 or 12 years old. At this age, without parents, it is difficult to control them. Most of them will be sold to pay off their debts, after being imprisoned for a period of time, or sentenced to imprisonment and exile. Alas, I don't know where they will end up in the future. So young? That's the fault of lack of education. They did this kind of thing, partly because they were coerced by others, and partly because the village clan school did not treat them well. Li Ju said, Dechen, remember, if they are sold, buy them back. The money from the buoy back is their debt, plus the money for Uncle Hu's medical treatment. Count them together in the account book, and ask them to serve Uncle Hu to pay off his debts. Another participant, Mr. Huang, who had been listening for a long time, finally spoke up. That's a good idea. Ever since you told me last time that the court guaranteed to send your children to school, I felt that some of the people who made mistakes here were not at fault. Take this brother and sister for example. Even if they are kind by nature, they have no parents to teach them, and no clan to raise them. They can only muddle along day by day, and their originally kind nature can no longer be good. It is their good fortune to meet a good family like you and me. It is unfortunate to meet a bad person like the chief offender, and they will be corrupted by the bad company. Can it be said that it is their fault? Of course not, because they have no place to learn the principles of being a human being. Only when the granaries are full can one know etiquette. For them, let alone having a full granary, I'm afraid they can hardly even have enough food. Even a saint cannot expect such people to realize the truth and be good people on their own. Li Ju said, that's right. They are young and have never been to school, so it's unavoidable that they make mistakes. The most important thing is to make amends for them. So first listen to the judgment of the law, which is to take responsibility for the mistakes they made. Then serve Uncle Who and work in Lee Garden, which is to atone for their sins. While they work, I will teach them. If they can be taught well, that would be the best. Adding 2 diligent people to our great Yang dynasty. If they can't be taught well, I will keep them here, and will not let them cause trouble elsewhere. I will trouble Lawyer Zhu to take care of this matter. I have read Lawyer Zhu's opinions, and I have no other ideas. Please ask Lawyer Zhu to do it for me. It happens that I have been busy with the land outside these days, and cannot spare the time. When this matter is over, I will hold a banquet to welcome Lawyer Zhu to join our Lee Garden. Chapter 102, Simple Addition of Poor Students. With a clear case and good cooperation from Huajia County, the case was sentenced within a month. The principal offender was dead and no longer being pursued. The accomplices were sentenced to imprisonment, exile, and shackles according to their degree of involvement. Those with lighter sentences had to pay compensation, and those who could not pay were sold. That day, Li Ju came from the barren mountain to count the harvest from playing in Huangshan. When he walked through the north gate of his home, he saw Wang Dechen and the gatekeeper Uncle Hu explaining how to discipline 2 real slaves, Wei Qi and Wei Bei, under the corridor behind the gate. Seeing Li Ju entering the house surrounded by the crowd, Wang Dechen grabbed her child by the collar in one hand and dragged him to Li Ju, saying, "Master, these are the 2 little traitors. You 2 are little slaves bought by our family. You will be slaves for life. When you see the master, you have to call him master. Do you understand? If you don't obey, I will beat you. Anyway, the lives of slaves are not worth much money." Wei Qi and Wei Bei were still wearing the clothes given by Li Yuan's temporary workers, but they were much more tattered. Wang Dechen was a bad guy, but Li Ju was not a good guy. He just glanced at the 2 children and asked Uncle Hu, "Uncle Hu, do you still have a headache? Did the doctor ask you to come out for a walk?" Uncle Hu laughed. "It's embarrassing to say it when the master asks." "Everything is fine. The doctor said I can go to work." Li Ju nodded and asked how the mute was. Yu Yaoniang, who had just come over to hand Li Ju a handkerchief and bring water, replied, "Big brother is also fine. He can go to the fields." The doctor asked Big brother to go for a walk, but Shivalang refused and said that the master would not allow it. I was just angry. Of course I will listen to the doctor. "Dechen, when will you pay the tax and corvée this year?" "I'm afraid they will be collected one after another in 5 or 6 days. Don't worry, my family, I promise to do it properly." Li Ju took a deep breath. Taxation was one of the most fundamental systems in the social system of the feudal era. In Li Ju's mind, the way of collecting taxes and corvée labor could affect the rule of a dynasty more than the imperial examination system, and its influence was second only to the land ownership system. Li Ju said, "I don't know much about paying taxes, but I'm very curious. When the day comes, you come and call me, and I will just look and not say anything." "Okay, I remember." Wang Dechen wrote down the things Li Ju wanted to know about taxes in a notebook, and then picked out a few remaining things at home to tell Li Ju. Again, the people who went out to look for his issue returned empty-handed, but they heard that the merchants in Luo County in the northwest knew about this, and had sent people to Luo County to inquire. Also, Lawyer Zhu closed the case a few days ago, and reported to Lee Garden yesterday. Ready to take calligraphy lessons. Also, a few new good children have been seen, and after Li Ju has reviewed them, they will be sent to various places for study. Also, the printing workshop has already printed the first volume of Romance of the Three Kingdoms with to color over printing, and rich pictures and texts. Mr. Huang has checked it, and thinks it can be published, just waiting for Li Ju to make a decision. Also, there are several newspapers published at home. Nowadays, the competition among newspapers in the city is becoming more and more fierce, but the circulation of Lee Garden's miscellaneous news weekly and legendary monthly is increasing. Yesterday was the day when the new issue of Miscellaneous Studies of 100 Schools was launched. People from neighboring counties all gathered around, regardless of whether they could understand it or not, and bought dozens of copies at a time, saying that it was for people from other places. In addition, the basic medical course was also taught to everyone. Everyone seemed to understand it, but their reactions were similar. After looking at the slides of parasites, They vomited all over the floor. In the end, two children who were more interested were handed over to the doctor as apprentices. Now there are 5 or 6 doctors and apprentices, and they fight for the microscope every day. Li Ju listened and responded from time to time, but ignored Wei Qi and Wei Bei. When Wei Qi and Wei Bei were part-time workers, they occasionally met Li Ju, and could see Li Ju greet them with a pleasant face. Now they are prisoners, and Li Ju doesn't even look at them. Wei Bei even felt that she would rather be scolded, or even beaten by Li Ju, than be left alone like this. They walked all the way to the main hall, and then Li Ju said to Yu Yaoniang, "I won't say anything else. We in Li Yuan are very kind to others." Even if the little girl in front messed up Sanjiu and her friend's music clothing store, she dared not touch the plants in Li Yuan. As for these two, we tried our best to save the most pitiful people, so we hired them as temporary workers. Dechen even kept them in reserve, and prepared to promote them to replace Chuzhen and others' work. Well, this is the result. Today is the first time that Li Yuan has bought slaves, and they have signed a death contract. I don't know how to use them. First, take them to Uncle Hu to apologize and serve tea and water. If Uncle Hu doesn't need them, let them serve the wounded. When the mute recovers, send them to plaster the walls and brush the pillars. We have only lived in this good garden for a few days, but it has been ruined like that. In addition to working, we also have to go to class and do homework every day. Then find someone to explain the truth to them and let them write ideological reports. They must reflect deeply on their mistakes every day. Li Ju's temper has calmed down a lot since he traveled through time. If he were here a few years ago, he would have kicked out and beaten up his subordinates if they dared to do such a thing. How could he let them go so easily? Wei Bei felt even more guilty when she heard that they were just doing work all the way and there was no shouting or killing. She pinched the corner of her clothes, holding back 2 bags of tears, and said in a voice like a cat's meow, "Master, I know I was wrong. I will never dare to do it again." Wei Qi still had a life-threatening look on her face, but she was actually regretting it in her heart. During her short-term working life in Li Yuan, Wei Qi's work was much easier than when she was in her hometown. Now that it has become like this, and she doesn't know what her future will be like, it would be strange if she doesn't regret it. The stubbornness on Wei Qi's face was just the face that a young man of this age couldn't get away with. Li Ju didn't say anything and let Uncle Hu take the man away. After reviewing all the developments in Li Yuan, Li Ju washed his face, combed his hair, changed into Yanju's rainy robe, and sat down at the door of his small building in slippers. He called Sanjiu, Yu Yaoniang and others one by one to ask about their studies in recent days. Except for Xiaolian and Shibalang, everyone else looked bitter. Just by looking at their expressions of wanting to speak, but not being able to, Li Ju could guess what was going on. Yaoniang said boldly, "Master, brother, it's really difficult. We were just learning 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 at first, and suddenly they started teaching about cells and lenses. Brother, can't we proceed step by step? I also learned a little, and when I talked about it with the girls, they asked, 'You said that grass leaves are made of cells, and we humans are also made of cells, so aren't humans no different from grass leaves?' I couldn't answer that. Master." Li Ju's scalp was numb. "Who did you learn such a strange voice from? Speak properly, and learn again after a while, if you can't learn it." Yaoniang said clenched her hands tightly and asked, "Can I learn something else? I really don't have any interest in people or blood. I think the master's newspaper article about why there are typhoons is more interesting. Can I learn that?" Li Ju ignored her and asked Sanjiu, "What about you? What do you want to learn?" Sanjiu pressed Yaoniang's arm and said, I'll just learn to paint. Although I can embroider, the patterns are a bit rustic, not to mention the purses and fan covers and sachets you gave me. They are far inferior to those in Qiantang and Suzhou. This won't work. We have to do it well in our music clothing store." Li Ju asked other people. Some wanted to learn carpentry, and some wanted to learn farming. No one was interested in bacteria, viruses, or dirty things. I don't know if they are really not interested, or they are scared by the microscopic world under the microscope. Li Ju felt a little regretful. He also wanted to bring out Mendel's pea experiment, so that he could also bring in the basics of genetics. Maybe it would make people here accept the concept that having a son or a daughter depends on the father rather than the mother, making life easier for women. Okay, go back and register what classes you want to attend, and then you can attend classes with people who take the same course. Everyone can choose the ones they like. I'm not asking you all to take the top exam, I just want you to learn more. Chapter 103, Mr. Yu writes a memorial. In addition to the people in Lee Garden who were still studying like primary school students at an old age, there was also Huang Jiren, who was baptized by Li Ju's stormy basic scientific knowledge. According to Huang Zhi's original plan, he lived in Lee Garden for a month or two, learned all aspects of Lee Garden, and then took the Three Kingdoms and Songguosi back. Unexpectedly, after living there for half a year, he was still reluctant to leave. However, he still had students to take care of, and his family couldn't leave, so Huang Zhi simply bought the house next to Lee Garden as a second home. He usually hung out with Li Ju in the morning, and went back to his second home to teach students in the afternoon, which was very cheap. Huang Zhi's students included Zhaoli, who wanted to concentrate on the imperial examination, and young people who were directly taken in as book boys by him. As long as he was happy to accompany him to talk about books and Taoism, he didn't care what he did. Whenever Li Ju came up with something new, Huang Zhi would take his book boy to study it carefully. If he gained anything, he would write a letter to let his close friends know. These days, with the help of penicillin, Li Ju introduced geography, astronomy, medicine, physics, optics, etc., wrote some basic things, and compiled a first edition of 100 Schools of Miscellaneous Studies. Huang Zhi also read it through. Unfortunately, he had some reading books without understanding them in miscellaneous studies. He really couldn't understand many places, but he didn't care. He would ask Li Ju to explain it to him when he had time, and then he would write down what he heard and send it to Yu Yaoniang and others together with the addition to see something new. It's better for everyone to be distressed than for one person to be distressed. With the strength of you, isn't it better than me to study alone and feel sad? Huang Zhi thought happily. Others are fine. Some like miscellaneous studies. Like Huang Zhi, they are dizzy and almost insane after being hit by Li Ju's thick introductory miscellaneous studies. Some think that it is an evil demon with a perverted temperament and should be banned. Some don't care at all, but they only pick out people related to agronomy. This person is Huang Zhi's seat master Yunnan. Half a month after the autumn harvest, Yanan received something from Huang Zhi. A basket of new grains, a book, and a very long letter. In Yanan's view, the relationship between air pressure, cyclones, sea and land, and cell viruses and parasites were not as important as the words 2000 catties of grain per mu on the paper. Yanan took out the potatoes that were placed aside and marked that if they sprouted, the whole plant would be inedible, and looked at them in his hand. As he looked at them, he thought, Feng is definitely not a person who speaks nonsense. He said it was 2000 catties, which means he really saw this number. If someone didn't deceive him, then it's true. Is there really such grain in the world? But Huang Zhi's letter still made Yanan a little skeptical. However, the letters from County Magistrate Wang Yue and County Governor Simahan also mentioned the same thing, which made Yanan believe it about 70%. Huang Zhi's letter also mentioned the degeneration of varieties. He accepted Li Ju's request to find people who are interested in agronomy and biology. It is said that such people may have the hope of taking on the important task of reversing seed degeneration. Agronomy and biology are in the 100 Schools of Miscellaneous Studies sent by Huang Zhi. As long as you read the book and find interest, it will be considered a success. As for the character of the person, you need to ask you to help consider it. Yunnan put the 3 letters in the book in front of him and thought for a while. He called the book boy to grind ink and asked someone to invite his eldest son Yufu to come. He sorted out the contents of the 3 letters, put forward the arguments mentioned by the 3 people, and wrote a short memorial separately, explaining that Li Ju, the owner of Lee Garden in Qingshan County, Daseng County, had 3 strange things, namely pinyin, cement and grain. The first 2 have been mentioned before, so I won't repeat them. Today's memorial is about food rations. Yaoniang spent half of the letter listing the situation of grain, especially emphasizing the problems of grain production and variety degeneration of 3 kinds of grain, and the fact that potatoes would be highly toxic if they sprouted. After writing the main topic, he attached a letter and said that the news came from 3 people, and the 3 people mentioned the same number of production, which shows that their news should also come from the same source. As the saying goes, a single piece of evidence is not enough, so this number needs to be referenced. In addition, the letter also attached 3 kinds of grain and storage and planting methods. If the other party is interested, he can try it himself. Since he wrote a memorial, the recipient was naturally the emperor. The whole text was written in one go. Yaoniang changed the words that needed to be avoided in the middle and handed the letter to Yu to copy according to the format. He also gave him the book Miscellaneous Studies of 100 Schools of Thought and said, after you copy the memorial, copy this book Miscellaneous Studies of 100 Schools of Thought. If you are interested in some of the theories in this book after copying, tell me. Yu was used to copying books for the old man, so he didn't think much of it. He took the book and the letter and went to copy them. Yaoniang leaned back in his chair and calculated carefully. This matter was not a serious letter. It was just an old man who saw something new and told His Majesty the Emperor. It was enough to write to this extent. As for future plans, we will see in the future. At least we have to see the crops grow with our own eyes and calculate how much they have degraded. Only then can we write a serious letter. If someone in the family is willing to go to Qingshan County and follow Huang Zhi, Li Ju and others to read it from beginning to end, that would be the best. Thinking of this, Yaoniang instructed his son again, after you finish copying the book, give it to others to copy. Everyone should copy it once, and everyone should write an experience for me. This experience is not good or bad, and it is not the right way to take the imperial examination. The most important thing is to be true. You must not force yourself to write something just to make it look good. Give it to me on August 2nd at the latest. Yes, father. This is a major event related to the national economy and people's livelihood. I hope everything goes well. Yaoniang believed 60% of Li Yuan's new grain harvest. Regardless of whether he recognized it or not, he subconsciously helped his students find the talents they needed. Huang Zhi was the same. After recommending Zhu Fakao to Li Ju to handle the affairs with the government, he selected several students to study science with Li Ju. Some people came, and some left one after another, and finally there were 2 people who persisted, just like Meng Shi and Wang at the beginning. They believed that what Li Ju said was true. Even if this theory could not be used to pass the imperial examination and become an official, they chose to stay and study it. They studied it seriously, unlike Zhaoli and Huang Zhi who just looked at it casually as a miscellaneous subject. After Li Ju finished the first genetics experiment class, he saw that their digging posture was very standard, and they had calluses on their hands, and were very familiar with crops, so he casually asked about their experience. Sure enough, these 2 students were children of farmers. Because they almost starved to death, they also saw too many fellow villagers who died of hunger, and saw too much despair and grief from their parents, so they chose to stay. After listening to the basic course, Li Ju didn't expect them to accomplish the feat of reversing the degeneration of varieties, but as long as they can pass on the knowledge and work hard from generation to generation, all this is just a matter of time. Moreover, it is indeed difficult to reverse existing varieties, but it may not be that difficult to cultivate new varieties. He didn't need high yield grains that would change fate in the future, nor did he need to be resistant to pests and diseases. He just needed to increase yields compared to current varieties. This shouldn't be that difficult, right? Chapter 104, Northern General Agent Liu. Mr. Yu took the opportunity to copy books and surveyed the young people he trusted. He found that the only one who really met Huang Zhi's needs was his son, Yu. Yu was probably born to study biology. In Mr. Yu's eyes, the basic knowledge of biology was like a heavenly book. Yu could understand it after just one reading. After thinking it over, Yaoniang decided to send this son to Qingshan County, to Li Ju in Li Garden, to supervise the various progress of Li Garden in person instead of the old man. Yu was honest and stubborn, and would never be persuaded to cheat his old father. Yunnan wrote a letter asking Yu Fu to pack his luggage and rush to Qingshan County with a book 100 schools of miscellaneous studies as soon as possible to stay in Huang Zhi's house. At this time, another person also came to Qingshan County. He was the cattle dealer Lao Liu, who went back to his hometown to farm last year after bankruptcy. If Lao Liu was the kind of person who was willing to farm, he would not have gone to the northern desert to do cattle business. Therefore, as soon as the letter and money brought by Niu Mawang arrived, he threw down his hoe and came to Jiangnan without saying a word. In one summer, several warehouses of honeycomb coal had been piled up on the barren mountain. The labor cost of taking care of the honeycomb coal was not very cost effective. Fortunately, the shopkeeper Lao Liu was a straightforward person and did things quickly. He had already thought about what to do on the way. On this day, he arrived at Lian, settled down, had lunch, and rushed to the barren mountain in the afternoon to squat on the honeycomb coal, mainly to inspect the goods, one to check the cost, and the other to check the effect. The result still satisfied Lao Liu. Li Ju did not lie to him. It was indeed low cost and easy to use. The key was that it burned quickly, and the amount was large. It looked cheap, but in fact, if you calculate the amount used, when everyone develops the habit of burning coal, the amount used is not low at all. In addition, what moved Lao Liu the most was that Li Ju did not intend to monopolize the market. Lao Liu originally thought that Li Ju would firmly control the supply of goods and only let him do the part of the merchant. This is nothing. Lao Liu used to start his business by running errands. Could it be that he could sell those livestock, furs, etc. on his first day as a businessman? He couldn't even afford the advance payment for the goods, and he had to start by carrying them. Honeycomb coal is good in every way, except that it is too cheap. It has to take the path of small profits but quick turnover. Not wanting to really sit down and discuss the profit sharing, Li Ju said, if manager Liu can sell it, he can set up a factory in the north to make it himself. The price itself is extremely low. It is too expensive to make it in Jiangnan and send it to the north. There is a possibility of losses in rain and snow, which is not cost effective. If brother Liu is willing, just allow me to charge a little money, which can be regarded as a bonus for engineer Meng and others. Manager Liu said, how much is this bonus? I calculated that the net profit for about a month is more than this. Since this matter has been handed over to me, and the factory is also located in the north, won't you make money yourself, sir? Li Ju shook his head. I won't make money. Think about it this way, sir. The rich families use the best silver frost charcoal and fruitwood charcoal. They certainly won't use the honeycomb coal we are making. It has a smell and smoke. Who among the rich people would use this? Honeycomb coal is the firewood of the poor. Since they are poor, how can I have the nerve to make money from them? Its low cost is there, and brother Liu and brother Liu's men can't work for nothing. The double weight plus one is expensive enough. Besides, this formula was not originally my formula, but my ancestor mentioned it, and engineer Meng and others worked hard to modify it. I just lie at home and do nothing, but I make money from the poor. What is this? It's like cutting the lean meat from the legs of a heron and scraping the fat from the belly of a mosquito. I can't do it. Manager Liu picked up the wine glass and took a sip. Sir, you are straightforward and kind-hearted. If I insist on paying, I will become a profiteer who rips off the land. Okay, let's do it. I will take less profit and just earn a living. Even if the deal was done, shopkeeper Liu had no money and even needed Li Ju's help to set up a fleet. He wrote an IOU to Li Ju, agreeing to pay the money back slowly in the future, and then concentrated on hiring people and vehicles. He had to test the market before deciding to make a big splash there. Qingshan County is located in the north of Jiangnan, and another 500 or 600 miles north is the border of Lunan, where the climate is already quite cold. Shopkeeper Liu's first destination is Yangzhou County in Lunan Road, and it will probably arrive in September, if he rushes all the way there. If the market response is good, he will go to Lubei Road, where there is a small coal mountain with a lot of coal slag, which can provide abundant raw materials. Setting up a factory there to make this honeycomb coal can radiate to important northern cities such as Daijing, Lubei, and Zheoyang Road. However, Li Ju meant that this recipe is the same as the cement recipe, and it will not be kept secret after a while. It was still, because of the low productivity, that Li Ju and Lao Liu could not take up too much of the market, since their own production capacity was limited, and honeycomb coal was a daily necessity. It would be better to open it up to like-minded people to do it together. Those who wanted to use it could use it, and those who wanted to make money could also make money through this business. They only needed to unify the pricing. Li Ju helped the shopkeeper Lao Liu to complete the preparations, and the shopkeeper Lao Liu set off for Lunan Road in early August, so as not to delay the work. In the morning, after seeing Lao Liu off at dawn, Li Ju went home, thinking about why he should talk about the great geographical differences between the north and the south, based on Lao Liu's case, and why ventilation should be paid attention to when burning coal. These topics are closely related to real life, and are always easier to understand. While he was preparing the draft, Huang Zhi came over, pushing Yufu. Yufu was very happy to see Li Ju again. The two men greeted each other, and sat down in the living room. Yufu handed Yunan's letter and said, "I got a copy of Miscellaneous Studies of 100 Schools from Mr. Huang. I have studied it for a long time, but I still don't understand some things in it, so I came to ask you for advice. My father's idea is that I can stay for a while longer, so I estimate that I will have to bother you for several months." Huang Zhi was worried that Li Ju didn't know the importance of Yunnan and ignored his son, so he added, "Brother, this is to my liking. We are both people who like these strange and new theories. Didn't Brother Li decide to take in more students and apprentices? As long as you understand it and spread the word outside, countless people from all over the country will come to study. Anyway, you live with me, so it won't be a problem for you. I think it's okay to stay for a year." Yufu replied dully, "That won't last for another year. I have to go back to serve the master. In fact, I also want to take a look at Lee Garden's 3 new grain varieties. My father is very interested. I heard that they will degenerate. My father meant that I like to tinker with these things anyway, so let me come and learn, while figuring out if I can help." So he is a talent in biology or agronomy. Li Ju became interested. "Brother Yu, I'm very grateful for your intention. Speaking of which, I was worried about what course to talk about with the students today. Coincidentally, Brother Yu is here. Why don't you tell me your questions and I will sort out the answers to these questions. This will not only satisfy Brother Yu, but also allow me to use them in my lectures, and it will be easier for me." Yufu said, "In that case, I will bother you, Mr. Li. There are so many statements in Miscellaneous Studies of 100 Schools of Thought. There are about 20 or 30 places that I don't understand. Among them, what I want to know most is inheritance. The book says that there is a certain probability that the characteristics of one generation of seeds will be passed on to the second generation. I understand this, but what is the reason for this? Also, Mr. Li saw from the microscope that everything is made up of tiny cells. What exactly are these tiny cells? Seeds must also be made up of cells. Is the inheritance you wrote about also related to this?" Yufu listed many doubts in a very eloquent way, which made Li Ju feel ashamed. I felt ashamed, but also somewhat relieved. Yufu really read it carefully, really liked to think, and really had a talent for biology. If I could get him to join the team. What a coincidence. I just planted a field of 2 color beans with 2 students. I guess the experimental results will be very interesting. I'm writing an article to be published in the October issue of Miscellaneous Studies. It's a good opportunity for you 2 gentlemen to move over. We can see for ourselves and talk about the truth in detail based on the reality in front of us. This is also related to the optimization and degradation of grain varieties. Chapter 105. First Concananjing, and then the imperial capital. The pea field in the backyard was where Li Ju and 2 students conducted a pea hybridization experiment. Li Ju followed the premise of Mendel's experiment and selected peas with closed pollination, strictly eliminating the interference of uncertain factors. The peas used for demonstration have very obvious characteristics, with different flower colors and seed characteristics. A small sign is inserted next to each pea bit, with a number on it. Each number corresponds to a description of the characteristics of the pea. My ancestor recorded an event After cross-pollination of purple-flowered peas and white-flowered peas, the second generation of peas all had purple and white flowers. The third generation of peas had both purple and white flowers, as well as purple and white flowers. This situation also occurred with other traits. For example, when wrinkled beans and smooth beans were cross-pollinated, the second generation of beans were all smooth, but the third generation had a mixture of both. The first person to record this event was named Mendel, a teacher named Aogo who lived thousands of miles west of Dayang. In fact, my ancestors have already sorted out the reasons why these situations occurred, but the reasons are too profound. In order to let everyone understand these things more directly, I took 2 students to repeat the experiment. Li Ju handed the results of the original experiment to Yufu. Yufu's math was not very good, so it was really difficult for him to calculate. Huang Zhi was even more lazy to read such in-depth things, so he asked, "What does this have to do with grain breeding?" Of course, if these ideas are true, we can artificially select better seeds. Arid areas need drought-resistant varieties, windy areas need wind-resistant varieties, and some areas with serious insect plagues need insect-resistant varieties. How to make seeds grow according to our wishes is the application of this subject in agronomy. For example, we now know how to cultivate purple pea flowers, so if we replace purple with fullness, can't we cultivate bigger and better peas? However, it is always more difficult to operate in reality, and the degeneration of existing varieties is not as simple as color changes. I hope that in my lifetime, I can at least find a breeding method to curb degeneration, or even better. Li Ju saw that they still didn't understand it, but seemed to partially understand the connection between the two things, and gave another example. "Brother Huang, have you found that, if we don't count the drowning of girls, and only look at the newborns, the numbers are about half male and half female?" Huang Zhi was calculating the genders of the children of the familiar families in his mind. Yufu said, "That can't be calculated. We don't know whether the newborn babies are boys or girls. When they grow up, boys always live longer and girls live less. My father once said that the best thing about my hometown is that there are fewer people drowning girls than in other places. That is, less. Most families still do." Li Ju frowned. The drowning of girls is not a problem of poverty, but an inevitable result of the clan and family unit. Even if he can solve the problem of food in the future, give girls a chance to work, and even extend the average life expectancy by 10 or 20 years, it will be difficult to change people's desire for sons. The awareness that economic factors and cultural traditions influence each other to promote development, how can it be shaken overnight? Don't look at the fact that foreign countries seem to be very equal in gender in later generations. Some countries even have more girls than boys. That is only a matter of 100 years. Huang Zhi said, "Perhaps it is because we are men who are full and do not know the hunger of men who are hungry. My senior brother and I have both sons and daughters, and our family is rich, so we are happy to have a daughter." Yufu said, "I think we should have a few more sons. When my daughter gets married in the future, if she has fewer brothers from her natal family, she will be abused by her husband's family." Huang Zhi said, "I will never choose such a family to marry my daughter. Even if I accidentally choose her, we can just divorce her, and I will naturally take her home to raise her. Even if I have to raise her for a lifetime, it doesn't matter. It's not that simple. Even if we can divorce, her life will be ruined after all." So the two of them started to discuss the matter of daughters. Coincidentally, they both had daughters. One was 5 or 6 years old, and the other was 7 or 8 years old. They were spoiled like treasures and jade, which was the age that pleased their father the most, so the topic inevitably followed. Li Ju had never raised a child, so he could not get a word in. He just walked and listened without saying a word. Finally, it sounded like Huang Zhi admitted defeat. "Brother, what you said makes sense. Only when the family is big and the business is great can a girl stand up straight. Speaking of which, this September is when my wife is due to give birth. I originally thought it would be better to have another girl for me to play with. In this case, I still hope to have a son." Old Li just said that the chances of boys and girls are half and half, so the possibility of this child being a boy or a girl is also half and half. Li Ju nodded. "That's right. It's not difficult to find out if you observe carefully. The midwife who delivers more babies must know it. But there is another thing that I'm afraid few people know. The person who decides whether the child is a boy or a girl is the father, not the mother. Huang Zhi said, the person who is pregnant and gives birth is the mother, and the child grows in the mother's belly. But how can the father decide whether the child is a boy or a girl? It might be hard to explain the father's sperm and the mother's blood now, so Li Ju kept it a secret. Brother Huang, are you curious? Then follow me and learn slowly. This is the meaning of heredity in biology that Mr. Yu asked me just now. Speaking of which, Brother Huang is 33 years old, so your wife is about the same age. Huang Zhi smiled, a sour smile that couples in love give to each other. My wife is 5 years older than me. I dare not say that my wife is much more knowledgeable than me, but she is more than enough to be on par with me. At that time, I was studying in his family's academy, and I was far inferior to my wife in terms of poetry, books, and classics. Fortunately, Mr. Zhu did not despise my lack of academic achievement and still approved my proposal, which is why I'm favored by you today. My wife is staying in our family this year because she is recuperating and cannot see guests. She has not been here. After the confinement period, I will let you meet your sister-in-law. Remember to pack a full moon gift for your little niece. Of course. Li Ju looked at the age of Huang's wife Zhu and said, so, my sister-in-law is not young. I will say it frankly, that when women get older, childbirth is particularly difficult. The medical department here has opened specialized industries of gynecology and obstetrics. Among the young medical students, there is a student studying obstetrics, named Yu Yaoniang. I heard that Yu Yaoniang is the most talented, and the doctors have already helped us take care of the women in our family. Why not ask her to visit my sister-in-law every now and then? In a few days, when the due date is almost up, she can just live in your house. At least she will be an arm. Okay, I'll pay the salary. Huang Zhi thought that there was indeed no doctor who could take care of his wife conveniently, and Li Ju had a good candidate here, which was really convenient, so he readily agreed. From this, Li Ju knew that Huang Zhi's love for his wife was not just talk. For some reason, there are many taboos against pregnant women in this era. There are even records of pregnant women being abused and killed under the pretext of gods and ghosts. There are also cases where pregnant women who rented other people's houses were driven out to the streets because they were despised and humiliated. Huang Zhi let the gynecologists and obstetricians live in the house after hearing Li Ju's words. If he didn't really care about his wife, he wouldn't make such a decision. It's good. Only people who value friendship can be trusted to interact with them. Yu Fu also said, my wife has been feeling a little uncomfortable since her child died 2 years ago, so I didn't bring her along this time to study. Now the doctor at Jinlingshu Pharmacy has prescribed a prescription for her to recuperate. It's been 2 years, and she's hanging on to her condition. I feel bad watching her. Since there is such a talent in Brother Li's house, can you also check on my wife's body? That's easy. I wonder if they should go, or your wife should come. Li Ju thought that, since the conversation had come to this point, it would be fine to agree. If the three families could form a good relationship, there would always be more benefits than disadvantages. At least, the scholars and even officials in Jinling can have a leader who can speak for them. Jinling is the seat of the entire Huainan Road. If you can take care of Jinling, you can take care of most of the Huainan Road. Let's not talk about other benefits. At least you don't have to worry about being bullied openly. Chapter 106. The small matter of paying taxes. Yu Fu stayed at Huang Zhi's villa, concentrating on digging out new knowledge from Li Ju. With an honest and simple face, and Huang Zhi's encouragement, he borrowed a microscope and a full set of tools for making smears from Li Ju. With this set of tools, he wandered in the ocean of new knowledge, fully demonstrating what it means to be thirsty for knowledge. While writing miscellaneous studies of 100 schools, Li Ju led his students to do various experiments and dealt with the strange questions of Yu Fu and Huang Zhi. In a few days, the tax payment day came. Wang Dechen personally watched the farmhands weigh the tax grain and bundle it onto the carriage. When the last carriage was loaded, he jumped on the shaft and went with the carriage to the granary of the county government to collect taxes. Li Ju asked the Luo family father and son to bring out Aze and called the mute to go with him to the place where taxes were collected to discuss the situation. Wang Dechen had already calculated all the taxes and corvée and explained the details to Li Ju in detail along the way. Li Ju realized that corvée can be replaced by money, but grain cannot. Grain must be paid in kind. Therefore, in addition to paying the specified taxes, some losses on the road must be paid. In addition, the county's fiscal revenue, in addition to the funds from the treasury, is the miscellaneous taxes levied by the local government. This also answered a puzzle of Li Ju, why the tax stipulated by the Great Yang Court was 15% tax, but in fact, the taxes and rents, to be paid by tenants in many places, accounted for more than 80% of the total labor results. Even self-cultivating farmers with land had to hand in at least 50% of grain and cloth. The good thing about Zhang Zhuzhang's one whip law in the Ming dynasty was that it unified taxes. Although it was inevitably implemented in the later period and became a dead letter, it at least promoted the reform of the tax system. In the current situation, it is too early to say anything. Those tax systems that were very good later may not work well now. But in any case, the burden on farmers is too heavy. It was not known whether it was because of Li Ju's fame or County Magistrate Wang's kindness, but at least the tax collection in Qingshan County was relatively peaceful, and the tax was collected in full and stored in the warehouse. Everything was in order, and there was no such thing as the leaning tip kicking the bucket that Li Ju had heard about before. Wang Dechen took the initiative to explain to Li Ju, "Our county magistrate is a good man." The higher-ups said that the tax is 15%, and after all the calculations, most people only pay 30% to 40%. With this little money, he has to take care of the food of the entire county government, and also take care of the road and bridge construction, and hiring people to do the work inside and outside. It's not easy. The county magistrate is good at managing his family, which is a blessing for the local people. Fortunately, I settled here. If I chose a place where there were heavy taxes, I don't know what would happen. Wang Dechen lowered his business and whispered to Li Ju, "The master thinks too much. If you say that you want to collect a few more miscellaneous taxes, it is indeed not uncommon. Heavy taxes cannot be easily done. The higher-ups are keeping a close eye on it. Besides, it's not the time for local tyrants to run rampant in the world. After all, it was not long after the war ended, and the world was recuperating. The people had no extra money, and there was nothing to rob if they wanted to." Li Ju shook his head and thought about the arrangements for next year's farming. After paying the land tax, Li Ju also paid the money for corvée. Along the way, he saw the dusty farmers and farm women, who seemed to still have the usual numbness and worry on their faces. He felt a little uneasy and said, "This year, our county has had good weather and good harvests. Even the typhoon did not blow here. It did not rain during the harvest, and there was no drought when water was needed. The farmers in our county can probably afford the taxes and rents." Wang Dechen said, "Does the master want to buy some land or hire more workers?" Li Ju was worried that the family would be ruined if the harvest was bad, so he said, "Even if it is." Wang Dechen said, "Of course there are. If there is no natural disaster, there will be man-made disasters. Not to mention that, if there is no big disaster, there will be small disasters." Speaking of Xiaokangshan village in the south of the city, they really escaped a big disaster because they saw the story on the display board at our door. Aunt Wang next door to our house has learned there. Yesterday, when the farmers and their family paid the rent, they specifically asked where the master was, saying that they wanted to offer a longevity tablet to the master. The children in their village went to the market to see the display board and then went back to think about the things in their own village. That day, they saw cracks on the top and bulges on the bottom, and they shouted that there would be a landslide. They must have caused a quarrel among several families at the foot of the mountain, which saved their lives. But I heard that many fields were destroyed. These families will definitely not be able to pay the rent, and maybe some family members were injured. Wang Dechen talked about several people near the county town who became poor due to disasters or man-made disasters, and even sold their children and daughters, and their families were broken up. County Magistrate Wang and the clans in the village were also willing to provide relief, but it was a drop in the bucket. This is because Li Ju came. Huangshan opened a factory and Li Yuan hired workers. Those who were desperate could do short-term work and save some money to avoid starvation. If there were no people like Li Ju in previous years, I'm afraid that more people would have starved to death. Speaking of this, it is common that there are too many children to raise. Children need to eat and drink when they are born, and they need to get married when they grow up. It is very difficult to get a bride price and dowry. Not every family is as shameless as the family of Yaoniang's sister, thinking of selling their daughters as child brides to make money. Most families raise their children themselves. The child in our family is the one we recruited not long ago when we discussed that someone should take over the work of Chusen and Azhu. Among them, there was a child named Jeteng. His mother had a heavy hemorrhage when giving birth to his sister, and she almost died. She is still being raised at home. We originally thought that his sister could not be raised and should have drowned. But he refused, so we sold himself to our family so that our family could raise his sister well. Master still remembers him, right? Yes, I remember. He is a good child. I remember that Azhu is taking care of him. Yes. The master said that he always thinks of his sister and will probably be more considerate of guests in the future, so he was specially given to Azhu to take care of so that he could experience the model house in the future. Jeteng's family is short of people to harvest the crops this year, and his grandparents are also injured, so they are really poor. The master also asked me to advance his wages to help his family get through this year and not have to sell the land. Yesterday, Jeteng said that there was really nothing at home to give to the master. Thinking that our family was robbed, there were grains piled in the warehouse and we were afraid of mice, so he wanted to catch 2 puppies and a big white goose and send them to him. I thought they were really useful, so I allocated a bag of salt and a few fish from the warehouse and asked him to exchange 2 dogs, 5 geese and a cat from the village. Let the old man of the Luo family raise them for a while, and when they are grown up, they will be released for use. Calculating the time when we get home, Jeteng should be back, Li Ju exclaimed. He supported raising a few guards at home. But it's okay to talk about geese, because geese are so strong and easy to keep. Dogs and cats might have rabies, which can't be cured in modern society. He felt his scalp tingling when he heard it. As Wang Dechen said, when Li Ju arrived home, Luo Leo came to lead the horse. Wang Dechen was asking, has Jeteng come back? Li Ju had already seen Luo Ziroj, Yaoniang, Xiaolian and others gathered in a circle in an open space not far away, laughing and talking, and no one knew what they were doing. I guessed that there were puppies and kittens, and the children liked them, so they gathered around. Li Ju's face turned pale, and he took a few steps forward, and was seen by Yaoniang and others. Yaoniang was holding a little white dog, Xiaolian was holding an orange kitten, Wu Yaoniang was holding a black dog, and several other children were holding geese. They all came up and chattered. Grandpa, look, a puppy. How fun. Grandpa, can we give it a name? Grandpa, can I have a kitten? Grandpa, I want to have a cat too. Li Ju hurriedly took the dog and cat into his arms, called out Washiang, and asked him to find his father, to quickly make a few half-man high cages, and asked, how long have you been playing? Has anyone been bitten or scratched by them? Chapter 107. Where does the money come from in the difficult times of coin minting? Fortunately, Li Ju came back early, and the children at home hadn't played with the cats and dogs yet. Li Ju couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. I like them very much. Let me stay until the end of the year. When I get familiar with them, I'll let you play with them. Although they didn't want to part with the furry little creatures, the children could only watch Li Ju take away the 3 little creatures. The 5 geese were temporarily given to the Luo family father and son to raise. When the geese grow up, they are no worse than dogs at guarding the house, and they can also lay eggs every now and then to eat. Li Ju pondered and walked a few steps outside. Then he thought of the infectious disease and suddenly turned back to ask the Luo father and son, you can also raise cattle, right? Luo's father said, yes, we can raise cattle, horses, sheep and pigs. Come to my study room when you are free in the afternoon. I have something to ask you. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. It's related to raising cattle. Li Ju said as he pulled the clothes out of the puppy's mouth. After pulling it out, he gently opened the kitten's paw. The summer sweatshirt was sparse in texture and not woven firmly. It couldn't withstand the sharp hooks of canine teeth and cat claws. The puppy could only hum, but the little orange cat whimpered in a delicate voice. Li Ju was a tough man, but he was also melted by cuteness. He hurriedly set a time with the Luo father and son and ran back to the small building in a hurry. I used to think that otakus were cute enough, but I didn't expect cats and dogs to be so cute when they were young. But speaking of it, this big orange is actually only suitable as a pet. If you really want to catch the geese and mice in the warehouse, you might as well rely on weasels, owls, and rat snakes. Or keep the big orange for yourself. In the past, I always heard about cats and dogs, and I didn't think much of it, just by looking at photos and videos. Now, after touching it a few times, and listening to its coquettish cry, I really don't want to let it go. He raised these 3 little things for 3 months. If they have rabies virus, they will probably show symptoms in 3 months. If these 3 little ones are still alive and kicking after 3 months, you can rest assured. Don't let them go out to play in the future, and be careful not to be hooked by wild cats, and basically there will be no more sacrifices. Of course, if you are really worried, there are vaccines in the cold chain transportation warehouse of the storage center. It was because of rabies that Li Ju thought of another thing. In ancient times, people basically had to bear the infectious diseases by themselves. The effects of medicines were extremely limited, or they were basically not symptomatic. Instead, they achieved the effect of curing diseases by strengthening the body and adjusting the body's state. It can even be said that the only exception is artemisinin for malaria. Even this artemisinin has little effect because the raw materials are often boiled down and then taken. Li Ju himself is not too afraid. As a modern physical traveler, he has received all the vaccines he should receive. But the other people here are not like that. Plague, cholera, leprosy, smallpox, and rabies, each of them is fatal. For other infectious diseases, Li Ju has no choice but to use the little vaccine in the cold chain of the warehouse. However, the vaccine can only save a small number of people at most, and it is not of much help to the overall situation. But smallpox is different. The source of smallpox vaccine is cowpox, and obtaining cowpox does not require the same high-tech production technology as other vaccines. Ancient doctors can handle it after basic training. Considering that smallpox is a highly contagious virus with a very terrible mortality rate, and it has already appeared in the previous dynasty of Daang, Li Ju decided to put cowpox on the agenda. In addition to saving his life, maybe he could also accumulate some political capital. In the feudal era, coming up with this thing was like having a golden ticket to avoid death, right? It wasn't that the emperor wanted to issue this thing, but it was the will of the people. So, first find the Luo family father and son to find out the source of cowpox, and then discuss the smallpox with County Magistrate Wang, Huang Zhi, and Dying and Weaving Chen. With the infectiousness of smallpox, Jiangnan is so quiet at the moment, there must be no one who has fallen ill. If you want to prove that it is effective, you have to look for it somewhere else, which is beyond Li Ju's radiation range. Li Ju figured out the follow-up arrangements, rubbed his son's head, and said lovingly, "What a little lucky star. You reminded Dad of such an important thing. Bring some inspiration to Dad, and see if Dad can think of anything else. Dad will give you a chicken leg." After a while, Wu Guanjia brought 3 half-person high, fine and dense cages. Li Ju put one in for each of the 3 of them, and put out food bowls and water. Cat litter is placed in the cat cage, and diapers are placed in the dog cage. When it came to diapers, Li Ju thought of something similar, the Chen Mama used by Yu Yaoniang and the others. But he really couldn't make this thing by himself, or he would be beaten as a pervert by the girls and wives. It would be better to wait until the 2 kinds of cloth and the fillings are invented, and then give a hint. I guess with Sanjiu's cleverness, he will figure it out right away. As for time, it depends on the loom, materials and the progress of paper making on the barren mountain. After calculating what to do next, Li Ju printed out the schedule and posted it next to the desk. This year's harvest is over, but double season crops, such as rapeseed, must be arranged soon. After the peanuts are harvested, this year's ones must be kept as seeds, and it is not known how much can be harvested next year. The tools for oil pressing can be arranged and made. The oil pressing method used in small workshops and later generations will be enough to cope with the current situation. For the time being, there is no need to worry about cement, honeycomb coal, etc. These two things can be left to the people of Dayang to deal with. Li Ju believes that the top smart people of this era will have corresponding usage and production strategies. The school textbooks are now copied to the stage of elementary school graduation. According to everyone's progress, it can at least be full for 1 or 2 years. Maybe there is no need to rush to move forward. It is better to round out the basics. The most urgent task in studying is to improve the teaching staff. Now there is Master Zhu teaching writing. When Master Zhu understands the use of pinyin, there is no need to worry about writing. The two doctors are considered half medical teachers. While learning new medicine, they compare and verify with traditional Chinese medicine. They are better than Li Ju, who can only follow the map. Other subjects. Don't we have to recruit people slowly? There are many agricultural students, but too few have farming experience. Li Ju needs someone who is good at observation and summary, and is willing to learn, and interested in learning. It's too difficult. He needs to hit the jackpot, and he doesn't know when this jackpot will end. Romance of the Three Kingdoms has copied 400,000 words so far, and there are 200,000 words left before it ends. The next one is considering copying Journey to the West. The current emperor neither believes in Buddhism nor Taoism, but he doesn't suppress religion. This is a good thing for Journey to the West, and it is not easy to violate the ban. The official history song Guozhi only ends with Song Taizang, and there is still a long way to go. It is possible to get the matching collections of literati first. I copied the collections of Zinkaji and Aoyang Xiu in the front, and then copied Li Yu's collection of lyrics. Now the streets and alleys are singing flowing water, falling flowers, spring is gone. With the progress of matching song Guozhi, I can copy Xiaoyan and Xiaoyan. It's time to sing flowers fall helplessly, and the swallows return, as if they have seen them before and falling flowers. People stand alone, and swallows fly in pairs in the light rain. Popular novels are for civilians to have fun and learn to read imperceptibly, but Song Guozhi is Li Ju's selfish desire. He wants the people of this world to see the stars that have shone in the historical sky of his time. What a dazzling and brilliant starry sky that is. The schedule is really full. Li Ju has not yet listed the part related to the economic development of Liyuan. Li Ju did not want to make money at first, but after half a year, he found that this was not feasible. Liyuan could not be a place that only went out but not in. Li Ju was unwilling to make money from soap and other things that were related to the improvement of people's lives. In the end, the only things that Li Ju was willing to make money from were luxury goods. These watches, soaps, and brocades had to be sent to more distant provinces to make reasonable money. It was still feasible in recent years, but in a few years, new things would still be needed to maintain Liyuan's expenses. Technological innovation always requires someone to burn money, and Liyuan must stabilize its source of income. Li Ju carefully observed the map he gave to students in class, estimating the approximate sales range of watches, soaps, and other exquisite and rare items, and finally his sights fell on the two places corresponding to Quanzhou and Guangzhou. Overseas trade, no matter what, must be bitten off a piece of meat from overseas trade. Chapter 108, A Good Harvest and the Fragrance of Rice Flowers. According to the time difference of this era, generally speaking, it is normal for places with backward fashion to be 5 to 10 years behind places with advanced fashion. This is limited to the fashion trend circle, and it is another matter when it comes to basic life. Li Ju estimated that clocks and other items have been spread to the Yanjing area, but they may not have become popular yet, so the market is still relatively limited. The same is true for pencils and yuhua skirts. The popularity of yuhua skirts is gradually not as high as before. First, more people are participating, and second, yuhua skirts are more complicated, with high requirements for dressing, and are not very universal. Muzi clothing store does not have the ability to monopolize the market. It has been a while since the time to compete on price. Sanjiu and Yaoniang asked Li Ju for advice and decided to only make the most exquisite styles in the future. For this, Sanjiu used the silver she saved as a deposit and bought all the unique bright materials of Lao Chen's family to make unique clothes. And Li Ju gave Sanjiu and the others a new idea to make new clothes. One is a phoenix tail skirt and the other is a cloak. These are two new things, enough to stir up a trend again. The phoenix tail skirt is somewhat similar to the moonlight skirt. It is a decorative belt around the waist and embellished on the skirt paper. Each belt is decorated with various techniques to play the role of the finishing touch. Because there is no fixed paradigm for shape and color, everyone's aesthetic taste can be fully utilized. As for the cloak, it is generally practical but extremely decorative. In this season, it is made of light gauze, which is elegant and graceful. In colder seasons, it is made of heavy wind fur, which is rich and warm. Sometimes when the girls walk around and don't want to be seen by others, they can put on one. Sometimes when the temperature difference between morning and evening is too big, they can also take one with them. Wear it when it's cold and take it off when it's hot. It can also block the wind, rain, and sun, which is quite useful. Sanjiu got a new idea. He was busy calculating these things during his rest days and made a phoenix tail skirt for each girl in the garden. The various kinds of skirts with various patterns, such as embroidery, beading, hand painted, gold and silver, mother of pearl, bells, and flower ropes, decorated the Lee garden in autumn like 100 flowers blooming. Before the skirts were officially put on sale, many people from outside had already asked when they would go on sale. It was obvious that the preheating was very successful. However, Li Ju underestimated the ability of other things to spread. Fashion and trends spread the slowest. This is because the social and economic level is not high, the transmission efficiency is low, and most families only have to make one set of clothes a year, and they don't have the spare money to chase trends. But things related to education spread at a terrifying speed. The whole society's pursuit of intellectuals and enthusiasm for reading directly led to the rapid spread of things that are conducive to reading. At least at this moment, penine and pencils have blossomed in towns and cities across the country. The phonetic table was copied to various places, and dialect versions and other prompt words appeared in various places. For example, for the initial consonant K, Li Ju used the character shell, which means shell, while in other places it was changed to tadpole. Most of the pinyin tables used in private schools are small pieces of wood, or letters written on thick paper with grids. There are also wealthy families who draw dragons, phoenixes, and flowers to make a gold, silver, and jewelry version of the pinyin for their children to read. Of course, the most expensive is the version of the emperor's family. Nowadays, people advocate frugality, so they naturally don't pile up gold and jade like the rich families. Therefore, the pinyin table used by the little princesses and princes is a base of gold sprinkled paper, with words written in ink and paintings in rock colors, which looks very ordinary. But the person who wrote the words was Yu Yaoniang, a calligrapher of this dynasty who won the top 3 places in the imperial examination, and the person who painted the pictures was Ko Shan, the top court painter. The works of the two have always been invaluable. Now the two swords have joined forces. It is conceivable what price such a pinyin table can be sold if it is circulated. Now such a pinyin table is hanging next to the desk in the East Palace, and a student is teaching the little princes to learn pinyin with a smile. Listening to the children's babbling, His Majesty the Emperor left the study with satisfaction. The lecturer who followed him said, "Your Majesty has a good eye for talent, but we ministers are too rigid. The princes can learn to read very quickly, and they can read quite a few books with phonetic notation. They are faster than us." The emperor was in a very good mood, so he naturally did not blame them for their previous suggestion to ban phonetic notation. He only said, "You are also doing your duty conscientiously. What crime have you committed?" He then asked the eunuch beside him, "Did the governor of Hualien Road present the earthenware today?" The eunuch said, "Yes. I heard that it was the recipe of Mr. Yu. 3 jars of good crabs made from 7 or 8 different kinds of wine lees, and 3 jars of crab sauce." The eunuch's statement was actually quite eye-catching, and there was nothing wrong with it. In this era, wine had to be brewed from grains, and only in good years would wine shops dare to brew wine. Hualien Road suffered from several typhoons this year, and half of the place was affected by the disaster, while the other half was good. The governor of Hualien Road presented crabs made from wine lees, and it depended on whether the emperor would like to take it. His Majesty the Emperor smiled and said, "I remember that concubine Shu is from Hualien province." "Yes, concubine Shu's hometown is Mi County, Hualien province. Give the queen and concubine Shu a portion of the pickled crab and sauce. Let them keep it, and use it, when I get there." Thinking about it, he felt that it was inappropriate to make concubine Shu's reward the same as that of the queen, so His Majesty said, "Tonight's dinner will be served in the pepper room." His Majesty the Emperor and the Queen were young couples, and they always respected each other like guests, and got along very well. The Queen was originally a generous and kind person. She had only one daughter, the eldest princess named Chengyang, whose maiden name was Lekang. Princess Chengyang was given a marriage to the son of the Grand Tutor at the age of 17. She turned 20 last year, and the Queen could not keep her, so she had to send her daughter to marry in tears. His Majesty the Emperor got this daughter during the period of being crowned king, and he loved her like a treasure for 20 years. Although he had many princes and princesses later, they were still not as favored as Lekang. Although the princess had married, the Emperor and the Queen still asked about her from time to time. The Empress had only one daughter, but she never envied other concubines who gave birth to princes. No matter which concubine was canonized or pregnant, the Empress would send people to congratulate her, and if she had time, she would take care of her personally. There were even many women who were selected to enter the palace. When they first entered the palace, they were too young to understand the world, so they lived in the pepper room, and were raised by the Empress for a few years, before they were officially canonized as concubines. Their relationship with the Empress was even like that of mother and daughter and sisters. The Empress was a very good person, and she was respected and loved by everyone. Other concubines could only sigh that they were not as good as her. In addition, His Majesty the Emperor had never paid attention to women, and his requirements for the harem were only virtuous and kind, so the harem was peaceful and everyone respected the Empress. Last year, concubine Shu gave His Majesty a little son. So now His Majesty has 6 sons and 4 princesses. He feels that he is perfect, and should cherish his blessings, and take good care of his health, and should not indulge in sensual pleasures. So he suppressed even the last bit of his desires. When he went to the harem, he only visited his children, and chatted with the concubines. He rarely invited anyone to sleep with him. His Majesty said again, "There is still a jar of pickled crab and a jar of sauce left. Send them to Chengyang. After that, you can go back to live in old age. You are old enough, and letting you follow me all day long makes me look like I'm torturing an old man. Replace that." Who? That, the one who can sing the fragrance of rice flowers tells of a good harvest. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, Not Interfering with Other People. His Majesty the Emperor thought, no matter what others do, the Empress must have something new. It is a happy event that a talented person has emerged from concubine Shu's hometown, and she should be happy too. After Lekang left, it was said that she did not get along well with her husband, but every time she came back, she never said a bad thing. But in order to reassure her parents, she only picked out good things to say, which really made him feel distressed, and he must arrange something for his good daughter. As for this eunuch, he had only worked a few shifts, but he was blinded by eye drops, and it was really kind that he didn't kick him to death. So he should get out quickly to avoid making trouble, and the boy who could talk about a good harvest in the fragrance of rice flowers was not bad. At least he understood that the people's needs were a good harvest. In short, after dealing with the ill-intentioned people around him neatly, His Majesty the Emperor asked the lecturer to continue to talk about the recent studies of the princes. The lecturer told the progress of the princes and princesses, and then said, recently, the second prince's companion brought a folk storybook to the scholar. After reading it, the scholar thought it could be used as a storybook for the princes to kill time during their leisure time. The last time you said this, the book sent to me was Jiaxo and Ci, which is indeed a good literary talent, good words, and wonderful people. What is it called this time? It's Feng Gong's commentary on The Romance of the Three Kingdoms by Li Ben, a folk story book. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms? The story is good, but it was written into a romance? Send it to me, and let me see it. His Majesty the Emperor felt that he had been in a high position for a long time, and could not see the situation of the people. The folk storybooks could allow him to refer to, and make some inferences, so His Majesty the Emperor did not dislike these improper readings. After all, who doesn't like to read novels? What kind of person is the prince's companion? At least the family of a fourth-rank official or the child of a clan relative, good-looking, kind, and upright. The books that such a companion can access are naturally not the most obscene little yellow books. The reason why this Romance of the Three Kingdoms can fall into his hands is because Huang Zhi likes to share his reading experience with others. Huang Zhi is doing two things now. One is to write comments on Li's Romance of the Three Kingdoms and get people to follow the update together. The other is to compile a dictionary and prepare to become famous forever. He will write a letter to share these two things with his friends every now and then. If there are any interested, he will also pull them to join. Especially Romance of the Three Kingdoms, not only to share it with friends, to follow the update together, but also to show off that his progress is faster than them. Zhang Zibu, the head of the Ministry of Rights in the capital, just received the first copy of Li's Romance of the Three Kingdoms with comments by Feng Gong sent by Huang Zhi not long ago. It was already late when he received it. He and his son finished reading the first volume overnight. When they found that the last sentence was to know what happens next, please listen to the next chapter, they immediately cursed Huang Feng, who doesn't care about anything. Zhang Xiaothi, who doesn't care about anything. Coincidentally, the emperor who saw the last page also cursed in the same way. He saw the last paragraph, which was Ko and Liu Bei discussing heroes over wine and plum blossoms. Today, the heroes of the world are only Yu and Ko. Liu Bei was surprised and dropped the chopsticks in his hand to the ground, which aroused Ko's suspicion. The emperor was about to see how Liu Bei resolved the crisis, but when he turned it over, he saw a blank piece of paper with a few big formulaic words written on it. The emperor, who had a particularly good temper, couldn't help but slam the table. Who wrote this book? It's none of my business. Get someone to write the sequel immediately. The emperor rarely used his privilege. No matter what, he just wanted to see the story behind it right now. The eunuchs hurriedly agreed one by one. Yes, we will do it right away. However, when the eunuchs asked people to draft the decree, His Majesty the Emperor stopped them again. Forget it, it's not right. A monarch should not have selfish desires. If he has selfish desires, he will inevitably indulge in selfish desires, and will inevitably not see the truth of the country. His Majesty the Emperor looked at the last page of paper reluctantly, as if he could see the story behind it from the two ending words, and said, "Let the scholar ask about the origin tomorrow. The book is a good book, but it is just a pastime. Don't change your temperament for it. Ask the scholar to keep a close eye on it." After solving a small matter, His Majesty the Emperor looked at the memorials for a while. In the last part of the memorials sent from various places, His Majesty the Emperor saw Yunnan's memorial. Yunnan's memorial was full of official temperament. He only used the simplest words to write a few things he saw in Jinling, the most important of which were pinayin, cement and food. The Emperor had already felt the power of pinayin and had asked the princes to use it. The Emperor had seen the following two things for the first time. The name of cement was not very impressive, and food was not a particularly serious topic, because Yanan used the wording new species, not a disaster or a famine, which made the Emperor very calm, and did not feel excited at first glance, until he looked down at the yield per mu. According to what your students, have seen, the yield per mu of corn is 2000 catties, the yield per mu of potatoes is 2500 catties, and the yield per mu of sweet potatoes is 3000 catties. A big question mark appeared above the Emperor's head. Are you crazy, sir? How can there be such a good variety in the world? It was so shocking that the Emperor did not dare to believe it. In fact, at this time, false reports of auspicious signs occurred from time to time and various places, and the emperor had become immune to the local news. If everyone believed that there was a unicorn in the marsh today, and a stone tablet fell from the sky tomorrow, what would happen? It was Yunnan who submitted the memorial, so His Majesty found it particularly funny, and did not refute it as bluntly as he did with other exaggerated memorials. At the end of the memorial, there were also detailed information attached, such as who went to see it and told him, what hidden dangers of degeneration, and several key points of planting, as if it was true. His Majesty wrote "I know," and asked the lecturer to write a detailed article. If there is such a thing, why don't you submit it? How can you trust it with such thin words? The eunuch who was serving remembered the list sent in from outside and said, "Your Majesty, Master Yu brought a basket of earthenware with the letter. Could it be what you asked Master Yu to submit?" His Majesty had already put Yunnan's memorial back and said, "Really? Then send it to the Queen's palace, and ask the small kitchen in the Pepper Palace to prepare it. Tell the Queen that I will be there later." As a result, when the lights came on, His Majesty went to the Pepper Palace for supper, but did not see the food that Yunnan submitted. Because the paraka yields written and the memorial were too exaggerated, His Majesty remembered the names of the new grains that Yunnan had repeatedly mentioned. When he heard that the dinner did not include the dishes that Yunnan had sent, but only a cold dish of pickled crab and a dish of crab sauce with tangerine peel and plum, he could not help but ask in surprise, "The native gift that Master Yu sent from Hualien Road, what is it called? Potatoes, or some kind of sweet potato? Why is it not here? Could it be that the people below did not send it?" The Queen smiled gently and said, "Why didn't it come? Master Yu sent a letter with the native gift saying that, although potatoes are good, those that have sprouted will be poisonous and cannot be eaten. But that basket of potatoes had sprouted, so he did not dare to bring it in. I thought that, since it is food and so rare, it is worth Master Yu to ask someone to send it from afar. There must be a reason for Master. It would be a pity to throw it away just because it sprouted, so I asked someone to plant it in a flower pot and put it in the greenhouse. The letter also said how to take care of it. I will play with it when I have free time, as a pastime. If it can bear fruit, it will not disappoint Master Yu's kindness in coming all the way here." His Majesty the Emperor always liked the Empress's soulmate, and he was very pleased to hear this, and said, "This matter has been properly handled." The Empress smiled again, and with the help of the palace servants, she cleaned her hands and personally prepared a piece of cold dish, pickled crab, for His Majesty the Emperor. "Wulang, try it. Do you like it? It smells intoxicating. I really don't know how it was prepared. We usually eat drunken crabs, but they don't have such a flavor." You can see that it took a lot of effort. Chapter 110 Hateful Person. At dinner, the Emperor and the Empress chatted about family matters with a few cold dishes and a few pots. They chatted until the meal was over. The Emperor and the Empress sat on the kang, and the eunuchs brought a pile of memorials to the Emperor to continue reviewing. The Emperor continued to read the memorials with a grin, occasionally looking up at the Empress who was handling her own affairs on the kang table next to him, just as a pastime. The Empress also had a lot of affairs every day, and only had time to do something she liked at night. She couldn't count the things she liked on her fingers, which were just a few common things, such as painting, growing flowers, and writing. At most, she would make a small purse-shaped clothes when she felt itchy. Other things were definitely not the Empress' turn. Today, the Empress was whispering with a few girls about what winter clothes to give to Princess Yu. The girls around the Empress included palace maids and women who were selected to enter the palace. For the time being, the Empress would take care of their daily lives. In the future, they might become concubines in the harem, or be granted marriage to other nobles, or they might become senior female officials. In short, a group of girls dressed in colorful clothes, with charming looks in their eyes and eyebrows, surrounded the Queen and looked happy, just like a family. His Majesty was unhappy. "I'm so miserable every day, but you are so comfortable and indulgent, more like the Queen's family than me, the Emperor. If I don't find something for you to do, won't it make me look incompetent?" Zitum. His Majesty the Emperor suddenly put down the memorial in his hand and talked to the Queen with a smile. "Juna's companion sent a storybook to the palace. I read it today. It's a good story. I want Zitum to read it too." Storybook. The queen turned around with interest. I like it very much. It's been a long time since I have received a new storybook. I don't know if my elder sisters have been wasting new things recently. His Majesty the Emperor was happy and immediately asked someone to bring Romance of the Three Kingdoms and handed it to the queen in person. Zitting, take a closer look. It's so good that you can't even eat after reading it. After that, he stepped aside and continued to read his memorial. The queen was immediately surrounded on both sides, and even her trusted palace maids couldn't help but look at the book. There was some commotion at first, but as everyone was fascinated by it, they gradually became silent. His Majesty the Emperor read another 10 or so memorials, put down his pen, and was about to take a break when he suddenly heard people around him complaining. Why is there no more below? Why did he stop here? Most importantly, the queen couldn't help but say, damn it, why didn't he finish it? Your Majesty, why didn't you finish this book? The Emperor, who had been on edge for the whole afternoon because of Liu Bei's life crisis, was immediately satisfied. How should I know? I can't come up with a second book. Zitong, it's getting late. Why don't you take a break? Tomorrow, catch the writer and put him in the prison of the Ministry of Justice and release him after he finishes writing. The queen was not a fool. She immediately realized that His Majesty the Emperor did it on purpose, but she couldn't scold him in front of everyone, so she asked everyone to leave and personally served His Majesty the Emperor to sleep. Li Ju, who was far away in Hualien Road, sneezed several times in a row, attracting caring eyes from everyone around him. Yu Yaoniang was the most direct. She brought out a bunch of newly made clothes from her room and handed them to Li Ju. Master, this is a new dress for the season. You thought the satin coat I made for you last time was too delicate and easy to break. This time, this one is made of our velvet, which is guaranteed to be wear resistant and dirt resistant. Sanjiu also chimed in. It's been very cold at night these few days. Master, please put it on, but don't catch a cold. On the other side, old lady Wu also looked at Li Ju kindly with the expression of looking at her son and grandson, and said, what the two girls said is that it's getting colder day by day. Master has been running outside all day, and he will definitely get caught in the wind. Li Ju couldn't listen anymore, so he took the new robe and put it on himself, at least making them shut up. Although he didn't feel cold, he was willing to wear more clothes for the sake of peace of mind. Forced to put on the new robe, Li Ju continued to show the people who were doing fine work what he was going to do next. It was almost the middle of September, and Li Ju gathered the women to teach them how to make quilted duck and goose down quilts. In this era, there was a quilting technique which was used to fix the cotton wool and padded clothes and quilts to prevent them from moving around. Since the cotton lining needs to be regularly fluffed and cared for, and it is not convenient to fluff the finished product after quilting, there are few opportunities to use this technique, and even if there is, it is generally only a thin style. What Li Ju is now teaching is the processing, filling, fixing and anti-drilling of down. The warmth retention of down is unquestionable. The only problem is that it is almost impossible to prevent down from drilling in fabrics of this era. Even if there are craft fabrics such as oiled fabrics that can solve this problem, the fabrics themselves are either too expensive or too hard and smelly, and are not suitable for wearing with you. So Li Ju selected several rolls of high-density fabrics from the storage center to make the lining. The quantity is a little less, but it is not a problem. Down products cannot be mass-produced for the time being, because the breeding of chickens, ducks, and geese has not yet reached a large scale. Even if all the scattered chickens raised by each household are collected, there will not be much. Li Ju positioned down products as luxury goods. It is so light, has such a good warmth retention effect, and produces so little grain, which is just suitable for sending them out to attract a wave of money. Since you want to make money, you need the best materials and the best craftsmanship. If the texture and color of the fabric used are not good, or the craftsmanship is not good enough, it will be a drag. Considering the special nature of down that is easy to drill down, Li Ju summoned Sanjiu and others and trained them carefully. He drew pictures one by one to teach them clearly about the steps of selecting down, disinfection, sorting down, quilting and filling. Li Ju planned to wait until the autumn clothes of Li Yuan were finished, and then let Sanjiu and others who were good at women's needlework make a few thin styles suitable for Zhaoli, Huang Zhi and others, and then make a few styles suitable for women according to women's needs. Li Ju didn't understand this aspect, so he could only let Sanjiu and others figure it out by themselves. Yaoniang asked, "What does the master wear? A sash or a small jacket?" "No need for anything. Jiangnan is much warmer than the master's hometown, so there is no need for a down jacket. Even a cotton padded jacket may not be necessary." Li Ju was sweating even when wearing only a jacket, so he naturally didn't need these. The feathers removed when selecting duck down and goose down can be sent to the chicken feather room for use. Speaking of the chicken feather room, Dechen doesn't have time to go to the chicken feather room this year, so I will choose a few of you to go to the chicken feather room to recruit the additional staff for the master next year. The time is still the 12th month and the first month. As for the candidates, 2 men and 1 woman are tentatively selected. Those of you who want to go, come and tell me, and I will arrange the shifts according to the situation. It was too early for this matter, and Li Ju just thought of it along the lines of duck down and goose down, so he just mentioned it casually. Sanjiu, Yaoniang and others responded casually, and when Li Ju said disperse, they gathered together to discuss how to make this down jacket. Li Ju put his hands behind his back, preparing to take Aze and the 2 dogs out for a walk and check the surroundings. But Wu Shuangai came running over and said, Master Jiren's family has sent someone to invite you to come over. They said you must bring the penicillin. No matter how much it costs, it can save his wife's life." Li Ju counted with his fingers and found that Huang Zhi's wife was giving birth this month. He immediately knew what medicine he should take and promised, "I'll get the medicine and go right over." Is he next door or in this house? Chapter 111, An Ancient First Aid. Huang Zhi's wife, Zhu, was waiting for delivery in the other courtyard. Because Huang Zhi and Li Ju had a lot of contact, Huang Zhi's other courtyard was already full of Li Garden's marks. The interior furnishings and soft decoration style were almost a replica of Li Garden. Sofas, spring mattresses, human-powered fans were all there. During the bitter summer, the other courtyard had plenty of ice and heat dissipation methods, and the shade of the nearby mountains made it more pleasant to live in. So in the end, Mrs. Zhu simply moved to the other courtyard to wait for delivery. Fortunately, after moving here, Yu Yaoniang, who was watching Mrs. Zhu giving birth in the other courtyard, found that the situation was not good. While others were still in a panic, she immediately asked the servants of the Huang family to invite Li Ju. Li Ju grabbed a small box that could serve as a cover, jumped onto the wall, and then jumped over an alley to the top of the Huang family's wall, and then jumped into the Huang mansion. Pulling someone to ask for directions, Li Ju trotted all the way to the backyard. Huang Zhi's servant led Li Ju inside and said, "The master said that they don't care about taboos, they just want to save the wife's life. You have the final say on everything." Li Ju didn't respond, but followed him around the screen to the inner room, where the smell of blood made him feel cold. Huang Zhi stayed with Zhu at the bedside, ignoring the advice of the old men that the delivery room is dirty and seeing blood is unlucky, and just held his wife's hand tightly, crying with tears in his eyes. When he saw Li Ju, he was out of breath and speechless, shaking out a few words. Husband, human, blood. It was Yu Yaoniang who came over and hurriedly told Li Ju according to the principles of practicing medicine she had learned. Mrs. Zhu's delivery was very smooth, but the placenta has not been delivered for more than 3/4 of an hour, and there are symptoms of repeated bleeding. I can't save her, and I'm afraid something will happen, so I hurriedly asked the master to come. Fortunately, the master came. In just a short while, so much blood has flowed, and there are many blood clots. I don't know how long it has been accumulated. Madam's mouth has turned white. Li Ju just flipped through a book about childbirth last month and remembered that this might be a heavy bleeding caused by retained or even sticky placenta. He had a plan in mind, but he still needed to confirm the status. Li Ju said I'm sorry, then reached out and wiped Zhu's hand. The palm of his hand was cold and damp, and it was obvious that the blood loss was accompanied by a low temperature. According to modern medical first aid, at least blood transfusion and manual removal of the placenta are required. Li Ju's scalp was really numb, especially in the ancient times, when men and women were strictly separated. Even if it was an emergency, Li Ju couldn't help but panic, so he had to bite the bullet and said, since my sister-in-law has lost blood, she needs to replenish blood. Yu Yaoniang, do you know how to draw blood? Yu Yaoniang said very honestly, I have learned it, but I haven't really done it. I used it on chickens, when I killed chickens in the kitchen. Good girl, the blood vessels of chickens are so thin, you can draw blood. I believe there will be no problem on humans. Mr. Huang, Li Ju wanted Huang Zhi to arrange a clean enough house, but seeing that Huang Zhi was almost fainting, he knew that Huang Zhi could not be relied on at this time, so he had to turn around and ask a few prestigious old men to vacate the next door, gather the strong servants, and order the kitchen to boil salt and sugar water immediately, and send it when it is cool. While the people in the Huang mansion were busy, Li Ju took out the disinfectant from the box he brought, and asked Yu Yaoniang to disinfect the environment immediately. Yu Yaoniang also got busy. Li Ju took the blood test paper to test Zhu's blood type. Fortunately, it was O-type, which had a relatively high proportion, and Li Ju himself was O-type blood. The next step was to recruit people who could donate blood. Li Ju was not going to consult Huang Zhiren's opinion, but if Huang Zhiren himself was willing to be the first person to donate blood, it would be much easier to collect blood from other people. Li Ju made up his mind and slapped Mr. Huang twice on the face to wake him up. He said, my sister-in-law has lost too much blood. I need to take blood from other people to give her a blood transfusion. I can't guarantee that she will survive, but at least it can increase her survival rate. Are you willing to give my sister-in-law a bottle of your blood? Mr. Huang was awakened by 2 slaps. His face was red, but he said nothing. I'm willing. What do you say? Do you want a knife from the kitchen? Li Ju took out a sterilized blade from the medical equipment warehouse. While explaining to Mr. Huang how blood transfusion works, how it does not affect the blood donor, and what blood type is, in order to divert his attention, he quickly pierced his finger to take blood, and used a test paper to test the blood type. It was exactly type O. Knife. What knife? Brother, sit down and stretch out your arm. I will take your blood first. The blood type must be the same. Great, you have the same blood type, so I can use your blood. In fact, I can also use mine. Let's each give a bag of blood first, and my sister-in-law will be safe at this moment. This matter is really settled. Although the emergency blood transfusion was not treated in any way, it was very risky, but it was still less risky than leaving Zhu lying there. Li Ju called Yu Yaoniang to show her how to draw blood. He actually only knew how to inject, not how to draw blood, but the principle was similar. Both involved inserting a needle into a vein, but the blood collection needle was so thick that it looked scary. Disinfect the environment, prick the arm, disinfect the skin, prepare the blood collection bag, and finally, show the needle. The thick needle was gesturing around the inside of Huang Zhiren's arm to find the right place to start, which immediately made several loyal old servants beside him feel distressed. Master Li, can we do it? Before Li Ju could speak, Huang Zhiren said, no, you are old, and we don't know what your blood type is. I'm in my prime, and my wife and I are in love. After today, my wife will have my blood in her bones and blood. My wife and I will never be separated until death. I'm happy, but what are you talking about? Although Li Ju had already mentioned the possible risks of blood collection, and although people have a deep-rooted belief that blood is precious and blood loss will greatly affect people's health and even life expectancy, Huang Zhi still donated the first bag of plasma in ancient times. Don't worry, brother, this little blood is really nothing. If you are still worried, ask the kitchen to send some salt and sugar water. Li Ju processed the collected blood and gave it directly to Mrs. Zhu. He only collected 200 milliliters from Huang Zhi, which is a relatively safe amount for a prime man. After disinfecting and bandaging the blood collection port, Li Ju said, next, we need to collect some blood from other people for my sister-in-law. You don't mind, do you? It would be a lie to say that he didn't mind. No matter how open-minded Huang Zhi was, he was still an ancient man. He couldn't have cared about his wife's blood being transfused from other people. But Huang Zhi's desire to save his wife's life surpassed everything else, and this little bit of concern had long been thrown out of the window. Huang Zhi gritted his teeth and said, "Please ask Brother Li to help." Li Ju said, "Sir, you are so righteous. This alone is also a role model for the world. Sir, don't worry, I will go to collect plasma. Wu Niang will stay and continue to treat Madam. Madam will definitely turn from danger to safety." Liu Wu Niang studied obstetrics for several months. I dare not say that she knows the structure of the female body like the back of her hand, but at least she is much better than the midwives of this era. She also learned several common life-threatening situations for parturients. She didn't know how to draw blood for blood transfusion, but she knew how to deal with other things. Li Ju persuaded the Huang family's healthy slaves next door to draw blood, and even drew 200 milliliters from himself first. Those hesitant maids saw that their master and Mr. Li had donated blood first, so at least their lives were not in danger. They also thought that their mistress was a very good person, and that it would not hurt for a servant to show loyalty. So the boldest of them signed up first, and then a dozen or so maids came over and said they were willing. Chapter 112 Li Ju becomes a father. In the end, there were about 20 people who volunteered to donate blood to Madame Zhu, and 5 of them matched the blood type. Together with the blood from Li Ju and Huang Zhi, there was enough plasma. Liu Wu Niang was terrified, and she took out the retained placenta and performed a curettage. Fortunately, Madame Zhu was really just bleeding heavily due to the placenta not being delivered, not placenta implantation, not placenta penetration, and it could be dealt with by finding the right method. Fortunately, Madame Zhu had already fainted, and she didn't wake up until Liu Wu Niang finished everything on her hands, so she could suffer less. Li Ju thought that, since he had exposed many things that were beyond his time, he simply took out the injection. After solving the root cause of the heavy bleeding, Madame Zhu needed infusion, hemostasis, and infection resistance, so 2 hanging bottles were erected. Okay. After putting the infusion roller in the right position, Li Ju watched Madame Zhu's complexion improve, and confirmed that Madame Zhu should be out of danger. The next step is to take care of her. Wu Niang, just take care of Madam according to the medical care section of miscellaneous studies of 100 schools. All the waste was collected by Li Ju and prepared to be sent for incineration. Huang Zhi wanted to help, but was stopped by Li Ju. The servants of the Huang family wanted to lend a hand, but were also rejected by Li Ju. These things from the modern world, the less they are touched by the ancients, the less danger they will be exposed. Although Huang Zhi would sooner or later become suspicious, maybe he had already become suspicious at this time, just because he was full of his wife's safety, he didn't take care of it for a while. Perhaps it was because survival in ancient times was not easy. Everyone had a heart that struggled to survive, and a body that could grow tall with a little sunshine. In the risky situation of Li Ju and Liu Wu Niang, one of whom only had theory but no practice, and the other was a half-baked beginner who could only boast of his courage and carefulness, Madame Zhu actually survived safely. Li Ju returned to Li Garden the next day. Liu Wu Niang waited for a whole month before she took back a box of silver from Huang Zhi. After returning to Li Garden, Liu Wu Niang was more determined to continue on the path of medicine. When she was removing the placenta for Madame Zhu, Liu Wu Niang's face turned pale, and she almost fainted. Li Ju thought she would choose other medical directions, but she still insisted on continuing her studies in obstetrics and gynecology. My mother died of heavy bleeding when she gave birth to my brother. The master may not understand my thoughts. I look at Mrs. Huang as if I'm looking at my mother. It's just that my mother didn't wait for the doctor, but Madame Zhu waited for the master. Someone will wait for me in the future. Master, I'm ready, and I want to continue studying. Very good. Li Ju said. It is because of such people who hold their breath and rush forward that the future world will be so good and there will be hope for this world. It is not convenient for me to comment on the body structure of women. Therefore, matters of gynecology and obstetrics can only be left to you to explore. All I can provide are the books in my collection and the doctors invited from outside. If possible, you should pay attention to which girls have the same ambitions or talents as you. I will provide money and space, and you can gather them together to walk this path together. support each other, and make progress together. Li Ju originally planned to conduct subject-specific teaching and talent gathering. He and Yu Fu gathered mainly people in agronomy and biology. Medicine was originally built around 2 doctors who guarded the house, but the situation of saving Mrs. Zhu this time made Li Ju realize that the influence of the difference between men and women in ancient times on medicine cannot be ignored. The part of medicine that is exclusive to women may still have to rely on the girls to explore themselves, and the help of doctors outside is very limited. Yu Yaoniang felt a little panic in her heart. The requirements mentioned by Li Ju were greater than she thought, and she was unsure. Li Ju didn't think much of it. Compared with the future, the current level of medical development may be only a few tenths of a point. After Yu Yaoniang learns the concept of modern medicine, she can at least raise her score to 10 points. In addition, the self-contained medical theory of this era, combined with the scientific system, may be 20 or 30 points. This is a 200 or 300 times improvement. Li Ju decided to set up a separate industry near Li Garden for Yu Yaoniang and others to study and practice medicine. Qingshan County is not an important place. The economy is developed only compared to more remote places. The house prices and land prices are still relatively low. If you don't pursue the garden effect, just buy a small house with 2 entrances and 2 floors and 10 rooms for the girls studying medicine to use as a teaching building. It will only cost a few dozen taels of silver, and you can sell a few bars of soap or cloth. Li Ju calculated and decided to buy some of the houses of poor people between Huangshan and Li Garden after the new year, and slowly develop them into various miscellaneous subjects. Each subject must have its own territory, except for agronomy, which is in Li Garden. The others can be placed outside. As more and more students come, there will always be some changes in the world. In any case, it is always a good thing that Madame Zhu can come back from the gates of hell. Huang Zhi's wife and daughter were saved, and he trusted Li Ju more in his heart. On this day, Huang Zhi's new daughter was full month old, and Madame Zhu was also out of confinement. Huang Zhi invited several local close friends and relatives to attend his daughter's full month banquet. Li Ju had no female relatives, so he only prepared a gift and ate a meal among the crowd. Huang Zhi placed Li Ju at the table with the closest people such as Yu Fu. Yu Fu and others had learned from Huang Zhi that the good Dr. Li Ju raised pulled Madame Zhu back from the gates of hell, and no one was dissatisfied. There were even several wives and concubines in their youth who wanted to invite Yu Yaoniang down to deliver their wives and concubines. In this way, you said one thing, and I said another, until all the guests outside had dispersed. They still did not let Li Ju go. Huang Zhi sent the others away, and returned to the inner room, where he sat on a small stool between Yu Fu and Li Ju. Because he had drunk a few more glasses of wine and they were the closest people at the table, he did not shy away from saying, "You are still thinking about your wives and concubines, but I want to find a way to stop having children. Now I have 4 sons and 2 daughters, and the eldest and second sons are already adults. Why should I let my wife suffer again?" Others said, "What's the big deal? Just take a few concubines to have children. It's the same when you're done. Then talk to my wife." Huang Zhi shook his head again and again. "Didn't I have a few concubines when I was young? They were just like that, not as good as my wife. There are 3,000 rivers, but I only take one. My good brothers, don't mention this matter again." Others started to make fun of Huang Zhi for being henpecked, but Huang Zhi was not afraid of being laughed at. "You can make fun of your own things, it has nothing to do with me anyway. But Li, brotherly, from now on our 2 families will be close friends, and your affairs are my affairs. You are my wife's savior, and I would like to ask you to adopt my daughter as your goddaughter. In the future, my daughter will definitely treat you as her real father and be filial to you, just as if you were repaying my mother's kindness. I wonder if my daughter has this blessing." Yu Fu and others knew that Li Ju's position was unstable. Although he had a large family and a great business, he still had to rely on the protection of the county magistrate, Huang Zhi and others, so they persuaded Li Ju to accept it. Especially Yu Fu. He personally poured wine for Li Ju and said, "Sir, you and junior brother Huang are as close as family. Even if you are half a disciple of my father, Hu Yaoniang dares to make a move on you, You have already won the hearts of the people with food, and it is time to find a bigger backer. We know that you will have a lot of reasons in the future, but distant water cannot quench immediate thirst. What do you think? Li Ju smiled and said, I have the same idea, but I dare not mention it, because I'm not a scholar. Brother Huang, I have no children now. I'm lucky to pick up a daughter for free. Huang Zhi hurriedly asked the maid to ask the wet nurse to bring the little daughter, and personally handed it to Li Ju to hold, and said, I was in a hurry today, and didn't prepare any gifts. Please give the little girl a nickname, just as a gift for meeting you. Strangely enough, the little girl was so small and just loved to cry, but she couldn't stop laughing in Li Ju's hands. Huang Zhi said with emotion, to this day I still can't believe that my wife was lucky enough to survive such a dangerous situation. It really is like a dream. Li Ju asked Huang Zhi for the Taoist fortune telling for the little girl. The mess on it was so confusing that Li Ju couldn't understand it. He only recognized that she had a destiny that favored fire, and said, don't mention my brother, even I'm still scared. I think we met on the first day of the Lunar New Year, and my brother saw that the fireworks in my house were beautiful, so he asked me about the fireworks. I think everything was decided at that moment. The little girl has a destiny that favors fire, so I want to name her Yuan. What do you think? Great, let's call the girl Yuan. Yuan is the first day of the first lunar month, and Yi means a state of abundant fire, and it also means peace. I think it's just right. Huang Zhi readily agreed, and asked the maid to tell Zhu that Li Ju's nickname for his daughter was Yuan, and he ordered everyone in the family to call her Miss Yi. Chapter 113, Li Ju's view on choosing a spouse. Miss Yi was a small ball, and the red wrinkles she had when she was born had faded away. She was as white as a jade, and very lovable. Li Ju was reluctant to let go of Miss Yi, but the little girl loved to sleep, so she smiled at Li Ju twice, and fell asleep again with a yawn. Li Ju reluctantly handed his goddaughter back to the maid, and carried her to the inner room. Then he heard Huang Zhi say, does my brother not have a courtesy name? Yu Fu said, I guess he doesn't have one either. If he did, he should have told us long ago, and we wouldn't have to call him brother for a year. Li Ju nodded. Indeed, I don't have a courtesy name. I left home to make a living before I got a courtesy name. When I returned home, I was the only one left in the family. Brother Huang, do you want me to have a courtesy name? Huang Zhi said, it shouldn't be my turn, but we should have a courtesy name that we can call each other privately, otherwise it won't seem distant. What I mean is that my brother and I can just pick a courtesy name temporarily. When we have the honor of meeting Mr. Yu in the future, I can ask Mr. Yu to pick a proper courtesy name for my brother. How about that? Yu Fu said, that's a good idea. My father admires Mr. Li very much, so he will agree. Li Ju didn't attach much importance to the meaning of name, courtesy name, and courtesy name. It was just a name, so it didn't matter whether it had one or not. He said, it's up to you, brothers. Huang Zhi said, my dear brother is the only son in the family, so he should be the uncle. The single name is Ju, which means that an ugly name can ward off evil spirits and bring good luck. The courtesy name can also be used to inherit this name. Why not call him Xiu, and the courtesy name is Bo Xiu, how about it? Li Ju didn't care about it, and decided immediately, okay, let's call him this. So from then on, Huang Zhi and others called Li Ju Bo Xiu. After a few times, Li Ju got used to using this character as his second name. It happened that the work of double season intercropping had been completed, and the rapeseed that was mainly intercropped in winter had all been transplanted, so there was nothing to do in the fields for a while, and other major tasks such as preparing winter clothes and making coal could be operated independently without Li Ju's supervision. Li Ju was a little free for a while, so he often asked Sanji Yu Yaoniang and others to send milk powder and other nutritional products to the Huang family, fearing that the little girl would not catch up with others in development. His love for her was beyond words. Mrs. Zhu was now well, and seeing this, she asked Huang Zhi to invite Li Ju to visit Miss Yi from time to time, or to personally send Miss Yi to the next door to pay respects to her godfather with her wet nurse and maids. Now the couple regarded Li Ju as their own brother, and Li Ju was very disciplined. Whenever he met Mrs. Zhu, he would either pay a formal visit in public, or he would only talk to Huang Zhi when Huang Zhi was present. The two families had less to avoid, and their interactions were as close as a family. Li Ju found some educational building blocks and beautiful dolls and stuffed animals, and filled the little girl's room. Those dolls were as big as bears, as tall as humans, and as small as cats, as big as wash basins. Even Madame Zhu liked them and couldn't help but pick up two and put them in her room. Seeing that Li Ju was still trying to dig out good things from Miss Li's room, she couldn't help but smile and said to Li Ju, "Since you like Miss Li so much, why don't I be a matchmaker for you and find you a daughter so you can give birth to one yourself?" Huang Zhi said, "Don't mention it, he wants a fairy." Li Ju was certainly tempted, but he couldn't get over the hurdle in his heart and said, "Appearance is secondary. If I like her, even if she's as ugly as Wu An, I'd be willing." Huang Zhi was surprised. "When you mentioned this before, you always hesitantly got away with it, but today you're willing to tell the truth. It seems that your sister-in-law knows how to catch your weakness. Tell me, what kind do you like?" Maybe it was because he had been a little idle recently, and people are bound to have sexual desires when they are well fed and well clothed. Or maybe it was because Yu Yaoniang was too cute. Or maybe he had become closer to Huang Zhi and his wife and could talk about more private topics. But Li Ju finally mentioned this issue for the second time. "Can we chat together and pursue the paradise in my dreams together?" Huang Zhi and his wife were stunned, and Huang Zhi said, "Appearance, family background, and personality don't matter at all." Li Ju said, "People who can chat with me must be suitable for me in all aspects. A person's life is only a few decades, and the time a couple spends together is too long. If they look at each other without saying a word, isn't it a waste? It must be a bosom friend, definitely." Huang Zhi smiled and said, "You said something in class. It's easy to get 1,000 ounces of gold, but it's hard to find a soulmate. I'm afraid you'll end up living alone. If you count the people in the county, except for me and the county magistrate, who can talk back to you, why don't you take a concubine first? It's hard to marry a wife, but it's easy to buy a concubine. It's easy to take a concubine and give birth to a daughter. If you are unlucky and give birth to a son, it's just right to get him engaged to our daughter." Madame Zhu glared at him and said to Li Ju, "Don't listen to your brother's nonsense. But I have heard a little about Bo Xiu's wish. If he wants a soulmate, it may not be a matter of one day or one night. A few years ago, when your brother and I were traveling in Beijing, we met a little girl who said something similar. The sisters talked about what poems they liked, but she alone liked 'I wish I had a mansion with thousands of rooms.' Every year, her family also gave out porridge and money to help the poor, but she felt it was not enough. When we sisters chatted, she often said that she couldn't understand why the court taxed 15% of the people, and the people were hardworking, but there were still so many people who couldn't eat enough and had no clothes to wear. I couldn't figure out her question, and neither did others. Bo Xiu probably understood it, but it was a pity that the timing was not right. The girl had already married. Otherwise, it would be interesting to listen to you talk about it all day." Huang Zhi said, "Why didn't you tell me about such a person?" Madame Zhu said, "It's hard to say. How can I tell the story of a girl's family? When we were in the capital, we had to be careful with what we said and did. I listened a lot and spoke little, for fear of causing trouble for you." Huang Zhi smiled and said, "Madam, you are wrong. Your business and mine are the same, so how come it has become a trouble? I would rather." Li Ju coughed, interrupting the couple's dog food, which was really eye-catching. Madame Zhu glared at Huang Zhi again and said, "I will remember about Xiu. If there is a girl like her, I will definitely keep her in mind for you. However, Xiu is already over 20 years old, and it is indeed time for her to leave a descendant for her family. Your elder brother's words just now were frivolous, but they made sense. If you meet an honest and decent girl, why not take her as a concubine? It's just an extra pair of chopsticks and a set of clothes." Li Ju said, "In my humble opinion, that girl is also a human being. If she doesn't want to, and I force her, wouldn't I be like a beast? even if she is willing, and I don't want to, but have to force myself to perform the rites of husband and wife with someone I don't like. Wouldn't I be like a beast? If not, then so be it. It has been all these years. Elder brother, I don't mean to say anything about you. I think you, and the people in the mansion, should all be willing. Huang Zhi smiled and said, I don't have a mistress in the room. She died a long time ago. I only have a brother who was born in the room. Your sister-in-law raises him, as if he were her own. I guessed you would say that. Well, I know what to give you for the new year this year. I will give you a box of fire avoidance pictures, so that you can get rid of your fire. Before he finished speaking, Huang Zhi laughed wildly, as if he had thought of something interesting. Madame Zhu's old face turned red. She kicked him lightly under the table, to make him restrain himself. Li Ju looked puzzled. Huang Zhi waved his hands and said, it's nothing. Forget it, leave it to your sister-in-law. Your sister-in-law is more familiar with the affairs of the boudoir. If God has mercy on you, and really sends you someone who suits your taste, you, a foreign man, will not be able to meet her. Isn't it convenient for your sister-in-law to go and see her? Chapter 114, Things about the year-end inventory. Huang Zhi later really sent a box of fire avoidance drawings to Li Ju, which was seen by Sanjiu and Yaoniang, who were delivering down jackets. Yaoniang didn't know what it was, and she innocently asked Li Ju all kinds of questions. Sanjiu looked at the drawings, and understood them immediately. Her face turned red all the way to her toes, and she looked at Li Ju with a look that made him feel uncomfortable, so he covered Yaoniang's eyes and hurriedly took her away. Li Ju was inexplicably accused of daytime indulgence, and was so angry that he almost sent the box back. Because there were so many people in the Huang family at the end of the year, he didn't feel comfortable, so he had to put all of them under his bed to avoid seeing them. As for the down jackets they sent, they really looked like that. Sanjiu and Yaoniang sent Li Ju a down quilt, a mattress, and a thin jacket that could be worn under other clothes. These things looked no different from modern ones, with bread grids and full and fluffy down. Li Ju used both the mattress and the quilt, and put on a high-count cotton mattress cover and quilt cover. In the winter, it was not a burden to cover the body, and the warmth was excellent. Sanjiu was also very considerate, and prepared a down swaddle liner for the little girl Yuan. In addition, they also made several baskets of finished products for Li Ju to give to others. They were all thin small jackets, waist guards, and other small items that could be worn under thin clothes. Li Ju counted the number and divided them into groups of knee pads, waist guards, and small jackets. He could give one group to each of the three couples, Huang Zhi, Wan County Magistrate, and Chen Dyeing and Weaving. There were still some left, so he gave a pack to Yufu. There were also small items that were broken or crooked by the female workers during their practice. Li Ju let them use them themselves. If there were any left, he would send them to several poor relief centers for the people there to use during the winter. These down jackets were small items that were close to the body and inconvenient to wear outside to lead the trend. However, the people who got the clothes helped to spread the knowledge when visiting relatives and friends. Even if they could not use these novel clothes themselves, there were other people who could use them, and they were worth giving them away. For example, County Magistrate Wang gave his share to his old mother, who was far away in the northern capital, and County Magistrate Wang's wife gave her share to her daughter who was still unmarried, saying that when she gets married, she will have to take care of the affairs of the family every day, and she will not be able to take care of anything here and there, so it is better to wear something warmer, to avoid catching a cold. This is very good, so light, so warm, and not noticeable at all. Huang Zhi also bought 2 sets for Yunan's family and sent them to Jinling together with the New Year gifts. Yufu and Li Ju were not so close, so they were embarrassed to ask for it and only asked someone to bring some from Musi clothing store to their family far away in Jinling. The craftsmanship of down jackets is not complicated, and they soon became popular in the inner houses of various wealthy families. It happened to be before the end of the year, and it was the time to buy winter clothes. It was easy for family members to think of giving gifts to the new clothes of the season. Each family had a handyman who made some by himself. If it was not enough, he would go outside to buy some. In the end, the bought and made were put together. Everyone agreed that the down jackets produced in Liyuan were of the best quality. To make a down jacket, the most difficult thing is to make the high density material of the inner liner to prevent down from drilling, and the second is that there are too few sources of clean, light and soft down. Down can still be bought from chicken and duck butchers. At most, if you give a little more money to a few peddlers to go to the countryside to collect it, you will definitely be able to get it. But the material for the liner is extremely rare. Most of the down jackets made by people themselves have so much down that it is drilled into the air. Therefore, the Liyuan down jackets that do not shed hair, even if worn for a day, have become a well-known high-quality product. This thing is light and does not take up space. The big merchants and wealthy families who come to Qingshan County to buy are happy to take some with them. Li Ju positioned these down jackets that he spent a lot of time on as luxury goods, which can only be afforded by people who pursue the ultimate effect. In an era when everyone can use needles and threads, those ordinary clothes can be made at home, but not many people are willing to spend money to buy them. Only things that ordinary people can't make can be sold at a good price. So a clean, smooth, waterproof and down-free coat from Music clothing store costs 30 taels of silver. Even so, it is still in demand, and countless people are waiting to sell it every day. After all, the sons and daughters of wealthy families want to save face, and the further north you go, the better the sales of down jackets. Who wouldn't wear a thin down jacket to keep out the cold at this time of year? Wearing this jacket, you can continue to wear those soft and colorful cloaks outside without having to wrap yourself up like a bear like other people. When the friends gathered together to play, everyone was wearing down jackets. When they took off their outer coats indoors, the Liyuan down jackets worn by others were still as clean as new and colorful, but I was the only one wearing a down jacket made by myself, and when I took off my outer coat, there was a layer of hair stuck to it. Wouldn't it be embarrassing? Therefore, people who follow the trend not only need down jackets, but also need Liyuan down jackets to avoid being left behind by the trend. This item alone can bring a net profit of 1 or 200 taels a day. Sanjiu calculated the time for making clothes and converted it according to the ratio of Liyuan's working hours and the hours spent on rushing work during rest time. He turned in 70% of it as Liyuan's share, and the remaining 30% was attributed to the account of Music clothing store. Adding other income, a little bit here and a little bit there, when it came to the end of the year, the account figures were much better than Wang Dechen had imagined. Wang Dechen originally calculated that Li Jubei would have to fill in about 2,000 taels of silver, but he didn't expect that he would only fill in 800 taels in the end. And if he comes up with something new next year, there might be a surplus. Wang Dechen handed over the account book to Li Ju in the middle of the 12th lunar month. Li Ju was ready to bleed a lot and even sell a batch of gems for money. Seeing the surplus, he was also surprised, so he gave each person a red envelope of 6 taels and 6 coins of silver. After handing out the year-end red envelopes, Li Ju still had 500 or 600 taels of silver left, enough to buy a large area of houses near the barren mountain and convert it into a school for teaching miscellaneous subjects. It was the little new year, and except for those who were too poor to pay their debts, or whose families had suffered disasters, every household was busy preparing for the new year. The already bustling Qingshan city was even more noisy from the crowing of cocks to the third watch every day, and everyone's face was beaming with joy. The soaps and other things that were usually only purchased by traveling merchants and wealthy families in Liu Ji goods store had already been sold out. During his morning exercises, Li Ju heard a neighbor say that he didn't expect to have so much income this year, and he wanted to buy some delicious and fun things to entertain guests and pay New Year's greetings during the new year. But after looking around, there were still the same few things. Apart from the things that Li Yuan had tossed around, there was nothing new, and he didn't know what to buy for a while. Li Ju pondered for a moment and hired a few blind people from outside to dismantle things. This time, they dismantled the modern snack area. Those snacks that Li Ju really couldn't eat were in large quantities and didn't fill him up, but they tasted great. He bought them now and sold them for a large sum of money. It was really good to add a small snack to the New Year's dinner table for people in Qingshan City and even the surrounding areas. On the day of the little new year, Li Yuan was busy for another day. Those long-term and short-term workers in Yu Yaoniang who had settled down outside were going home to celebrate the new year one after another, so they all said goodbye to Li Ju early. In this way, Li Ju had been in this world for a whole year. Chapter 115 New Year 1. On the day of the little new year, Yu Yaoniang was the first one arranged by Li Ju to come to the open space outside the main hall to receive the New Year's gifts. After a year, Yu Yaoniang finally grew a little taller, and her cheeks became visibly rounder. Her black and strong hair finally grew below her shoulders, and was now tied into two braids by her master, and coiled on both sides. She wore 2 velvet flowers and 2 big red hairbands. When she came to the door, Li Ju was very satisfied. His arrival was meaningful to the people in this world. Yu Yaoniang and many other people who used to be hungry, timid, and skinny finally looked like normal people. It's been a year, and I didn't notice it when I saw her every day. Today I found that the little girl has become a big girl. In 2 years, she should be an adult and give her festival gifts. But this year she is still a child. The festival gifts prepared by Li Ju were not packaged, but simply piled on the table. According to the results of everyone's work this year calculated by Wang Dechen, Wu Guangjia and others, the things everyone finally got changed according to this result. Of course, because Li Ju particularly liked a few of them, he would add some personal gifts to the things he gave. Master. Yu Yaoniang was usually carefree, but she became shy for a moment. She pinched the corner of her clothes and stood on tiptoe. Master, I will remember your life-saving grace and repay you for my whole life. Li Ju smiled and didn't respond. She directly stuffed her with New Year's goods. Butler Wu counted the goods according to the booklet, and the mute picked them out one by one and handed them to Li Ju. A bag of pocket money, a bag of various dried fruits, a bag of various preserved fruits, a bag of meat jerky, a chicken, a fish, 20 eggs, a bag of smoked sausage, a piece of bacon, a basket of fresh fruits and vegetables. These are for food, a red coat, a pair of black woolen trousers, a red sheepskin towel, a pair of felt boots, 3 pairs of fine linen quilted socks. These are for clothing. There is also a large woolen quilt, 3 enamel wash basins, and a piece of cloth. These are for daily use. Master knows that you can't carry so many things, so he got 2 small carts. You can push them and return them after use. Yu Yaoniang didn't expect to be able to carry so many things. She was surprised and then happy. She thanked Li Ju again and again, and then she pushed the full cart away. After Yu Yaoniang, it was Sanjiu. Like Yu Yaoniang, Sanjiu became more attractive after a year. She was born very fair, less weathered, and more confident to make her own decisions. Her natural beauty was nourished by the snow creams and pearl creams that Li Ju bought. She knew how to dress and comb her hair. Because she had time during the new year, Sanjiu dressed herself and Xiaolian neatly every day, making them look even more radiant. Sanjiu brought Xiaolian to greet Li Ju and others and wished a happy new year. She took a full cart of things from Li Ju. Xiaolian's things were similar to Yu Yaoniang's, but she didn't have chickens, fish, smoked sausages, bacon, jackets, and boots, but she had a lot of her favorite dolls, pens, ink, books and other things. Sanjiu had 3 extra bags of grains, a barrel of oil, and a bag of salt, which were for her and her daughter to cook for themselves. When Sanjiu and Xiaolian left, Wang Dechen couldn't help but say, it's a good thing that the young lady of the Zhao family was chosen by the master and kept, and now she is the head of the family. Otherwise I don't know how she would be dragged down by this face. As early as the chicken feather room, Wang Dechen put Zhao Sanjiu and her daughter in the first wave to introduce them to Li Ju and take them back to Li Garden. He had some thoughts on this, but Li Ju at that time couldn't see Wang Dechen's arrangement. At this time, Li Ju was repeatedly talked about his wives and concubines by Huang Zhi and his wife. He could hear the hidden meaning of Wang Dechen's words and laughed. It's human nature to be lustful. It's just that villains are tempted by beauty, while ordinary people will reflect on themselves when they see beauty. Although I'm not smart, I think I'm also an ordinary person. Dechen is still single. If you like her, you can pursue her. As the Book of Songs says, a gentleman loves a beautiful lady. Wang Dechen said, I dare not do that. I will definitely hire someone from outside in the future. The master's family may have simple people in the past, and they don't know the truth here. For a family like us, the most feared thing is that the confidants inside and outside the family will collude. If the master doesn't guard against it today, he will have to guard against it tomorrow. There is no need to alienate you and me for a woman. Besides, haha, such a beautiful woman is cheap to me. I'm happy in my heart, but I may not be able to keep her. Having said that, Wang Dechen still felt a little regretful. Wang Dechen used to work in the pimping business and also bought people for wealthy families. What kind of women had he not seen? None of those beautiful daughters-in-law can compare to Sanjiu. But I don't know where Sanjiu is from, and how did she fall to being picked up by the chicken feather house? If she is from Kingshan, with such beauty, how can she be without a reputation? Li Ju shook his head and said, okay, I treat these three as my sisters and daughters, different from others. You are all grown men, I think you can let them go first, so I gave them first. After sending them here, I will send the festival gifts to you three first, and then to Chuzan, Shiba, Mengshai and Wang and others. Wang Dechen calculated the amount that each person should get, and was looking forward to it. He thought that Li Ju would give his turn after giving out the others, but he was waiting here. He hurriedly rubbed his hands and looked at the mute eagerly, waiting to receive the festival gifts. Li Ju gave the three of them almost the same amount, including meat, rice, oil, salt, clothes, etc. In addition, Butler Wu received an extra gift from Old Lady Wu and a pocket watch, and Wang Dechen received a few bars of soap, refreshing essential oils and a pocket watch. The mute had no hobbies, he just wanted a better life. He followed Li Ju all day long, and didn't need to check the time, so Li Ju decided to replace him with a set of sitting and sleeping supplies at home, so that he could enjoy himself. Butler Wu was not good at talking, but Wang Dechen was smart. He held his pile of things, and boasted to Li Ju first, then asked cautiously, will there be any money in the account next year? The master has kept some people in the chicken feather house. There may be dozens more people next year. Li Ju didn't care about these small amounts of money. There will be new income next year, don't worry about this. Not to mention the oil press workshop next year, and the small profit of honeycomb coal. Just wait for those schools to be built, and the students in them can't just study and not do anything. Those who study medicine will naturally go to see patients, and those who study agriculture will naturally have to farm by themselves. If the income is still not enough, at most there is still the family property. Our family has left me some cloth, gold, silver and jewelry, enough for you to live on. I said I would provide for your old age, and at least I would leave this part first. In this way, after the spring, you can choose the cemetery by yourselves, and I will buy the land deed and give it to you directly, okay? Wang Dechen laughed and responded readily. Li Ju urged him to continue looking at the list and counting the gifts for the people waiting outside. The three of them piled up the gifts in their hands and continued to pick them up in order. Yu Yaoniang and Jiu had returned the carts long ago. The 2 carts of gifts made everyone jealous. They couldn't help but run to the door to watch. Soon, the corridors in front of the main hall were crowded with people. Li Yuan often had some rare things, and it became a habit to be watched by people every time. There were also temporary workers who lived close to the main hall. When they heard the noise, they came out to watch the fun. Wang Dechen, Wu Guangjie and others were more willing to show off, so they did not disperse the crowd, but raised their voices and called out names, so that everyone present could hear and understand what it meant to eat meat with Li Ju. Deng Chusenlang, 1 piece of bacon is worth 2 katas, 5 katas of japonica rice, 3 katas of flour, 3 katas of millet, 3 katas of millet, 3 katas of sorghum. 20 eggs, 1 piece of fine cloth, 1 piece of coarse cloth, 3 katas of white cotton, 10 fruits. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116 New Year 2. Li Yuan sent a detailed list of festival gifts to the long-term workers. with the envy of the short-term workers and nearby neighbors, and the boasting of the workers who went home to visit their families. The gifts flew to all the nearby villages and towns like doves with wings. The already rich festival gifts became even more exaggerated and attractive after being processed by everyone, so that even many people who pretended to be poor and wanted to get into Yu Yaoniang came to the chicken feather room. Fortunately, although the conditions in Yu Yaoniang were good, the work would not be reduced by a penny. Those who wanted to be lazy would leave in disgrace after staying in the chicken feather room for less than 2 days. These people who just wanted to eat and drink for free could not understand why the long-term and short-term workers in Yu Yaoniang were so active and motivated when working and were so excited all day long. Just as they couldn't understand why Ju would give the sturdy houses in the best garden to the slaves, and why Ju was so friendly to these poor people. So they couldn't figure out the reason behind it. Only when people treat a place as their home and a thing as their all will they have the passion of the workers in Yu Yaoniang. Most of those who couldn't keep up with Yu Yaoniang's pace withdrew on their own or were eliminated by Ju. This included not only those who had just joined the chicken feather house this year, but also those who had worked in Yu Yaoniang for a year last year. Some of them thought they had earned enough money to go home and buy a few acres of land and live a self-sufficient life. Wang Dechen was furious. First, he was angry that they were either making up stories or breaking their promises. They had agreed to be long-term workers for several years, but ran away early. Second, he was embarrassed that he had found these sneaky people for Ju. Ju himself didn't care. Population mobility was normal, and he couldn't ask everyone to be of the same mind as him. It was just right that those who were of different minds parted ways early, leaving those who trusted him to push forward with him. In the past year, Yu Yaoniang was busy, and everyone lived a very fulfilling life every day. Except for the 4 festivals of Shangguan, Qingming, Zhongyuan and Mid-Autumn Festival, the other festivals were celebrated with half an egg at most. Therefore, Ju took advantage of the new year to make up for the previous holidays, and took holidays from the New Year's Eve to the 15th day of the first lunar month. During these 20 days, everyone was busy discussing how to celebrate the spring festival. One family provided meat and the other provided chickens and ducks. They discussed in detail where to set up the banquet, what time to start, etc. That day, Yu Yaoniang and Xiaolan came to Ju to borrow a venue, and they borrowed a large open space in front and behind the main hall, saying that they were going to hold a banquet for 100 people. It's rare that Mr. Meng and the others are back. Let's have some fun together. We promise not to disturb you, and we also promise to clean up the place. Master, can you lend us that piece of land? Ju's scalp was numb, and he hurriedly said yes, and then said, wait, are you just eating and drinking, or do you have other tricks? Xiaolan said, there are tricks. Jeteng can do magic, and brother Liu can play Qju. Brother Xiaoman used to be a novice monk, and can sing sutra songs. Sister Xiaoxiu can play the flute. There is nothing else. Ju nodded. You guys go. There are 2 things to do when you go back. First, ask housekeeper Wu to come over. I have a small job for him to help with. Second, go and ask if anyone wants to perform something for everyone. For example, a variety show, or a story from the imperial lecture, but they don't know how to perform, and don't have a script, so they dare not stand up to please the audience. If there is, ask them to come. The master has 2 plays that can be given to them. Also, every spring festival, the master's family used to have everyone gather together to watch the fancy work. The master will give you a once, and you can do it next year. If it's done well, we will have a banquet outside and invite people from nearby to have fun. Everyone in Lee Garden loves to show off. How could they not show off? It would be strange if they didn't brag on such a good host and such a good day. Hearing that if it was done well, they could go outside to show it to others, Yu Yaoniang's eyes widened. She responded crisply, pulled Xiaolian up, and hurried to housekeeper Wu. She had figured it out. The first thing she had to do was to find Wu the housekeeper himself. The second thing she had to do was to ask Wu the housekeeper for help. Yu Yaoniang had limited contact with the men, so she didn't know their situation. While they were looking for someone outside, Ju quickly pulled out a few books from the warehouse and prepared to select stories from them to make a show. Li Ju flipped through the songs and dances. The group of people outside could sing and dance, but if they really wanted to compose a good-looking dance, they wouldn't have enough time to match the music and songs. Crosstalk and sketches were fine, especially crosstalk, which could be restored to the form of storytelling, which would not affect the appreciation at all. Sketches had to choose stories, and the stories had to be short, good-looking, resonate, and have a little thought. At this time, drama had just sprouted, and it was about the level of Tansy. It had not yet developed singing, reciting, acting, and speaking, and had not formed a foundation for widespread appreciation of drama. It was not suitable for those mature long-form dramas that had already become routines. Instead, some short legends could be changed into sketches in the form of miscellaneous dramas. For example, Yu Yaoniang and Jin Yunu, Meng Lijian, Female Imperial Concubine, The Kite Mistake, and even The Cock Crows at Midnight are all possible. Li Ju walked around the room twice, and Wu Guanjie had already led the people who had signed up on their own initiative. Li Ju saw this and thought, forget it, just play Yu Yaoniang and The Cock Crows at Midnight. Because among those who signed up on their own initiative, there was only one young girl, and the others were men of different heights, weights, and sizes. After all, the only play that needed to keep the main character as a beautiful girl was Yu Yaoniang. Li Ju then took out the textbook drama versions of Yu Yaoniang and The Cock Crows at Midnight, listed the characters and roles needed on paper, hung it on a large whiteboard in the living room, pointed to those characters and stories, and told the people who signed up what acting was, what roles there were, and how to dress up and act. Some people backed out, but there were still 7 or 8 left, and it was not a problem to perform 2 plays. The only problem is that there are at least 2 female characters in the play Yu Yaoniang. One is Ensnare, and the other is a brothel owner where Ensnare works. Both female characters are prostitutes, so the girl who followed was a little hesitant. But her fiancé, a lame man who lived on the street with her, supported her very much. A CUI is so beautiful, and she must be as beautiful as Miss Sanjiu, so go. We all know each other well, who can say anything? The girl named ACUI shyly agreed. This is really dog food, and Li Ju felt jealous. In Li Yuan this year, there are quite a few couples who have some interest in each other, but everyone is a little shy, so how dare they dance in front of Li Ju? This is the first time for ACUI. After getting the heroine, Li Ju read out the lines, and everyone divided their roles, and recorded the lines and actions by themselves. It took from morning to dark, before he finally figured it out. Seeing that they had recorded their parts, and knew the basic stage requirements, Li Ju let them go back to rehearse. He only kept Wu the housekeeper, and continued to tell them other things. The prospective actors were very excited. Not many of them had seen the lectures at Wasi. The biggest excitement they usually saw was juggling and monkey shows. They didn't expect that they would be performing in this world's first various drama. Expectation, timidity, pride, all kinds of emotions mixed together, but it prompted them to want to do this better. Li Ju asked them to perform exaggerated, emotional, and accurate rhythm. They didn't understand half of what they heard, but it didn't matter. They practiced carefully. Even if they couldn't get full marks, they could do half of it. That would be the first time in history. If they told others about it, they would be envied. Chapter 117 New Year 3. Li Ju called housekeeper Wu and gave him extra wages to help make lanterns. From today to the 15th day of the first lunar month, he had to make as many lanterns as he could and make lanterns that tell stories and lanterns of various colors. There were many lanterns in the warehouse, but most of them were powered by electricity and would last for decades, so Li Ju had to save them. He didn't have time to make these during the Lantern Festival last year, so this year Li Ju wanted to promote the name of Qingshan Lanterns. It happened that the open space between the dock and the shops had been turned into a market early, and it was very lively every day. I thought the market outside and the market in the city should be connected. When buying New Year's goods, Li Ju noticed that Qingshan County was very prosperous this year, and there were several more streets than last year for people setting up stalls and soliciting customers. It was about 2 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide, and there was more than a mile to the market. It became a New Year's market and even had the meaning of a nearby county town or county transfer center. Groceries from all over the north and south are all running here, and people are coming and going, which is quite like a logistics intersection center. Although this year's goods are still mostly basic food and toys, next year, there will definitely be more fresh things sent from farther places. Now there are only 20 days to the 15th day of the first lunar month. It is unrealistic to expect Wu Guanjie to hang all the roads in the market with his own skills. Li Ju plans to take out some basic modern models and give them to Wu Guanjie to modify them into oil lamp lighting styles, and then let Wu Guanjie think about the advantages of modern models and make some improvements to the existing models. Think about a batch of new models every year, so that there will be progress and changes every year, and outsiders will have expectations every year. The year of the rabbit is about to pass, and next year is the year of the dragon. Li Ju asked Wu Guanjie if he had any taboos. He learned that it is not taboo for the people to use the image of dragon and phoenix. So Li Ju has a plan. Most of the classic rabbit lanterns and dragon lanterns are modified with modern lanterns, and then let Wu Guanjie make a double lantern for the big rabbit to pass the fire to the little dragon. Wu Guanjie was an expert bamboo craftsman, so making lantern frames was no problem. Li Ju only asked him to make it look like the real thing. As for the lantern design, he couldn't learn it at the moment, so he simply gave up. Wu Guanjie naturally dared not do his best, so he called his son, daughter, and daughter-in-law to replace more than 100 rabbit lanterns with lamp oil wicks. Then he called for embroidery samples and asked him to draw patterns that could be cut out according to the story scenes of the revolving lantern. When the embroidery samples were finished, Wu Guanjie also made the outlines almost right. He only dyed the patterns and pasted them on the rotors, and then combined the inside and outside, and then he could show off. The two plays Yu Yaoniang and Cock Crows at Midnight had not been rehearsed yet, but the revolving lanterns had already been hung out. People who were rushing to stroll on the street counted the time when Li Yuan's revolving lanterns were hung out every day, as if they were catching up with the scenes of Romance of the Three Kingdoms again. The revolving lantern was so small that 4 scenes were usually enough. The audience can probably tell what kind of story it is, but if you want to understand it carefully, it is still very confusing. I just think that the names of the 2 stories are well chosen. One is Yu Yaoniang's anger and sinking of the treasure box. Who is Yaoniang? How precious is a treasure box? How did it sink? A series of questions were asked, which made people's appetite very high. Not to mention Zhao Papai's cock crows in the middle of the night. It can be seen that it is a landlord who bullies tenants, but is bullied by the tenants in return. There are few real landlords among passers-by. Most of them are small farmers who grow their own land. When they see this story, they feel involved and want to know how to counter it. In this way, the 2 stories were suspended from the new year to the new year. Li Ju finished copying Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and then he had time to copy Li Yaoniang's Ensnare. Ensnare by Feng Menglong and Ling Mengchu is a collection of 5 books, with a total of more than 200 stories. Li Ju only copied part of them. Since it was a copy, it was inevitable that some deletions and revisions would be made according to the actual situation of the world, and some contents that Li Ju felt were inappropriate would be removed. In the end, there were about 100 stories left. It could be serialized for another 2 or 3 years. Huang Zhi had just finished copying and commenting on Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and had handed the manuscript to the bookseller. He was expecting Li Ju to copy Journey to the West as he had promised before, but he didn't expect that 3 words into Shot's collection would pop up. Before he finished reading one book, another one came out. Even if this book was a unit story, one story was told at a time, and it would not be as heart-wrenching as Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Huang Zhi's heart was still bleeding. Huang Zhi still came to listen to the play with his family when he knew that Li Yuan was going to stage a new play on New Year's Eve. Huang Zhi and his wife, their children, and Yu Fu and others, a total of 7 or 8 people, brought food and daily necessities as well as New Year's gifts, and returned to Li Yuan early on the morning of New Year's Eve, and settled down in the east and west rooms. Since the Huang and Li families were close friends, there was less courtesy and awkwardness between them. Li Ju was willing to joke with Huang Zhi. If it weren't for you and Yi, I would have closed the door to visitors. I just killed such a big pig. took those fresh fruits, made daughter red and champion red, and asked someone to get the best foreign beef. It's not enough for me to eat, how can I share it with you? Huang Zhi knew that he was joking on purpose, and said, if it weren't for these, I wouldn't have come. This is called using a daughter to make the uncle rest, ha. Li Ju pretended to be angry, but took little Yuan from Huang Zhi and put him on his lap to tease him. The servants of the Huang family came to clean up the house. Huang Zhi just watched them put the books in place, and then he felt relieved, and let them do it. He said to Li Ju, I came here today, not only to take advantage of your variety show, but also for an important matter, which is the dictionary you mentioned. I hurried to list all the common characters according to Pinyin this year. There are more than 3,000 characters, and all the characters have been corrected. I have explained the 4 characters and clearly. Your sister-in-law asked you to check first to see if you are on the right track, so I brought them here. Today is New Year's Eve and tomorrow is the first day of the new year. Let's relax for 2 days. You can take a look on the second day of the new year. Okay. Li Ju didn't think it was a big deal. The ideas of compiling dictionaries have not changed much since ancient times. It's just that the search method has changed after the emergence of Pinyin. It would be strange if Huang Zhi could even make a problem with this. When Huang Zhi finished talking, Yu Fang came in from outside and took over the conversation. Li Ju habitually asked politely whether the arrangement was appropriate, and Yu Fu said yes. He then said, logically I shouldn't come, but it's boring to stay alone at my junior brother's house. We have the friendship of waiting for the peas to bear seeds together, so I came here uninvited. Please don't be suspicious. Li Ju said, of course not. It's just right. I vaguely remember that Mr. Yu specifically asked for some things. Let's check the list one by one on the second day of the new year and take them to Jinling. It was easy to say, but in fact Li Ju was very curious in his heart why Yu Fu didn't go back to Jinling, but spent the new year alone in Qingshan County, which was not far from Jinling. Qingshan County had a lot of new things this year, but Li Ju gave away everything he could give. He believed that he had not kept anything to himself, and he really couldn't think of how he had tripped up Huang Zhi's senior brother here. Chapter 118 New Year 4. During the day on New Year's Eve, everyone was busy preparing for the New Year's Eve dinner. They were busy preparing tables, chairs, and stages, lanterns, candles, fireworks, and firecrackers. No matter where you go, you can see people preparing for the New Year's Eve dinner. They kept working, satisfied, proud, expectant, all the positive emotions that can be thought of shone through everyone's smile. In addition to those who went home for the new year, plus the people brought by Huang, Yu, and others, there were more than 100 people in Li Yuan's first official New Year celebration. The space required was quite large, and it took more than half an hour just to clean the place. The tables for the banquet were connected by connecting the tables used in class and the tables in the personal rooms, but it was still not enough, so some small square tables were borrowed from the next door and put together in a fan shape in the main hall. Li Ju poured some fancy chemical fiber velvet materials from the warehouse, and despite the eyes of everyone who said master, this is too wasteful, he spread these velvet fabrics that Li Ju thought had no other function except decoration as tablecloths, which once scared Shivalang and others so much that they dared not put dishes on them. The tables were set, and the lanterns were hung. The 2 tables at the front were decorated with candlesticks and cheap horn lanterns, and decorated with plum blossoms, daffodils, and pine branches. The cushions on the chairs were soft and elastic. Li Ju knew at a glance that it must be Wang Dechen's idea. If he was alone at home, he wouldn't need these. But today there are a few more guests, so he has to show his hospitality. Other things can't be brought out at the moment, and these are also a sign of sincerity. Lee Garden is not very particular, and the guests probably know something about it. When they see the flowers on the table, they already know that this is the highest standard of reception in Lee Garden, and they are not dissatisfied. When the tablecloth is spread and the chairs are placed, you can roughly know how many people are gathered together, and then you can put some tea snacks sent by Li Ju to have fun with everyone according to the number of people. There are both common preserved fruits and pumpkin seeds at this time, as well as fruits, melon seeds, dried tofu snacks, etc. that Li Ju brought from the future. On the 3 high seats of Li Ju and others, there was an extra pot of rice wine and a pot of hot tea. Huang Zhi's was milk tea, while Li Ju and Yu Fu's were ordinary lounging. In the evening, they were going to perform some shows for everyone. Those who were happy together had eaten in advance and were instructed by Li Ju to put on makeup and change clothes. Li Ju said that after the performance, each person's costume would belong to each person, which made those who wanted to sign up but backed out for various reasons regret it. In Li Ju's opinion, these costumes were not worth mentioning. They were all fancy cloth-like curtains, hard and rough, not suitable for wearing, but in the eyes of everyone, these were good clothes that had never been seen before. Apart from anything else, they didn't even dare to think about the hard yarn that Li Ju disliked. Where in the world can there be such a material, light and thin, almost transparent, but it can withstand embroidery and is so stiff? Ordinary people, with powder and rouge, exaggerated eyebrows and eyes closed to facial makeup, and then hair rolled up, wearing various crowns made by themselves, really look like that. When the impatient families started to light fires and set off firecrackers, the people from Liyuan also came to the main hall together. Everyone changed and washed, put on the most beautiful clothes, combed their hair, put on the newly bought hairpins, hair crowns, earrings, etc. And regardless of gender, age or age, they were all dressed in a riot of color, showing a wealthy appearance under the hazy sunset and lantern light. A state of wealth and self-confidence cannot be faked. At least in the eyes of Yu Fu and Huang Zhi, the appearance of the people in Liyuan is already clearly different from the people outside, even the wealthy families outside. Li Ju was also quite satisfied with this. Everyone was satisfied this year, so they were willing to work hard next year. Shibalang, together with the kitchen helpers, placed the dishes for the New Year's Eve dinner on 3 tables of honor. All of them were cooked according to different people's tastes, with the addition of some good things that the kitchen considered. For example, what was placed here for Li Ju was a mixed rice cooked with freshly harvested japonica rice, brown rice, sweet potato and pumpkin, ham and hen soup stewed in a clay pot for a day, a bowl of clams stuffed with shrimps, a jar of pickled crabs, a plate of cleanly peeled and seeded fruits and vegetables, a variety of fancy shortbread pastries, beef, mutton, pork and chicken stewed in 5-spice sauce, and a few fragrant roasted pigeons and quails, etc. The trembling braised pork recipe perfectly illustrates what it means to in an era when people can't afford meat. Their fantasy of heaven is 3 fingers wide of fat. Others went to the kitchen to get their own meals. Everyone got an extra piece of meat or ribs, a bowl of fish soup or chicken soup, and a portion of pickled duck. After they got their meals, they took them to their seats, put their own cups of water on them, and chatted while waiting for the evening show to start. The food on Huang Zhi's and Yu Fu's tables was similar, with fewer strong mountain delicacies and more fresh seafood than Li Ju's. Huang Zhi's table was more abundant than Yu Fu's and Li Ju's, with more food for his wife and children. In general banquets, men and women rarely sit together, but Huang Zhi's wife, Zhu, disagreed. It's not those places outside, it's our own brother's home. Since my brother doesn't have a wife, I, the eldest sister-in-law, can be in charge of things. What's there to be shy about? Let me relax for 2 days. Huang Zhi agreed. Li Ju himself hated these old-fashioned rules, so he set up the seats for Mrs. Zhu and Huang Zhi together. This should be the first spring festival gala from ancient times to the present, and it was also the first time that Zhu sat at the same table with her husband in front of outsiders. Therefore, from Yu Fu and Huang Zhi, to the temporary workers who had just entered Li Garden for a short time, to the outsiders who heard the news and lay on the wall to watch the excitement, everyone was looking forward to it. The restless atmosphere even made Li Ju, who was not so concerned, a little moved. The one-armed storyteller who told the story of the 3 kingdoms is still in Li Garden. Li Ju is very satisfied with him. In the future, he will rely on him to tell stories such as Journey to the West and Water Margin. yesterday, he simply sent him to the stage to be a guest host. Anyway, the work of the host and the storyteller is similar. He can drive the atmosphere, whet the appetite, adapt to circumstances, and interact with the audience. He can handle it all. At a certain time, the storyteller walked to the raised stage swiftly, greeted everyone and said goodbye. In a few words, he raised everyone's emotions to a high level, and then took the opportunity to launch the first program of the night, which was the flute of little Xiu girl. To be fair, Xiu is just a farm girl. The music she plays is made up by herself when she is herding cattle. It is full of local characteristics and has a bit of Zali Bayren meaning. When the two plays are performed later, Xiu will also provide music for them. Li Ju stroked his chin and pondered the feasibility of finding someone to perform small-scale miscellaneous plays in the Wasi. Nothing is more attractive than literary works. After all, serializing stories outside requires readers to be literate. But drama is different. The simplest and most straightforward drama has no requirements for the audience. The more vital the literary works are, the lower the requirements for the audience. That's why Yu Yaoniang was able to achieve. Liu's lyrics are sung at the drinking water place in their era. I've gone off topic. Anyway, Li Ju had already thought of this idea last year, but the stall was too big last year, and the serialization progress of the Three Kingdoms was too slow, so he kept dragging it out. This spring festival gala, Li Ju only made suggestions, and did not intervene deeply. If they do it well, they can consider doing these things in the Wasi this year. Chapter 119 New Year 5. Li Yuan's Spring Festival Gala is obviously not worthy of being on a high stage, but it is full of wild fun and the story is fresh and exciting. It is something that has never been seen or heard before, and it is refreshing. The first half of Yu Yaoniang was over. It was about a famous prostitute Yu Yaoniang testing the sincerity of a certain student Li Jia. She got the expected answer and was satisfied to redeem herself and return to her hometown with the student. The first half of the play was cheerful and lively as a whole, but at the end, Li Jia's father was mentioned, and a small introduction to the story was buried. At this time, literary and artistic works had not yet formed a stereotype. Whether it was the stereotyped tragedy of the fate of the Mandarin ducks or the stereotyped comedy of twists and turns, no one had seen it, so they could not help but worry about Yaoniang and Li Jia. During the intermission and the change of scenes, Mrs. Zhu couldn't help asking, where did this storybook come from? Why is it different from the ones that the master took me to listen to? Huang Zhi took Mrs. Zhu with him when he was studying. The two of them traveled all over the country and listened to a lot of southern and northern accents. They also made efforts to appreciate Tansi and rap. Mrs. Zhu even wrote a small book of Tansi's Jiangaiyu, not to mention the miscellaneous plays in the brothels. In order to understand the local customs and folkways of a place, Huang Zhi bought a lot of folk storybooks from all over the country. However, like Li Yuan, many people went on stage together, used costumes to express their identities, used backgrounds and props to interpret scenes, and everyone played a role. This was the first time that Huang Zhi and Mrs. Zhu had seen it. Although it is visibly rough, this form is really fresh and interesting. Li Ju replied, the story was copied from a family book, which is a legendary storybook. I wrote the lyrics for the adapted play, and they figured out the movements and expressions themselves. Huang Zhi said, what a pity, the lyrics are not very good. Madame Zhu smiled and said, it's really not very good, but the story is good and the performance is also good. Bo Xiu, if you trust me, just give me the manuscript of this book, and I will follow your performance method to match this legendary storybook with a top-notch fourfold story. How about it? Li Ju knew that Madame Zhu's family had learned this, and her knowledge was not inferior to that of men, so he smiled and said, this is the best. To be honest, I just thought of this on the day of the little new year. I wanted to ask the storyteller to revise it, but because he and I wanted to be lazy, we delayed it until after the new year. Let my brother and sister-in-law listen to such a play by a makeshift troupe. I'm really embarrassed. It is a blessing for this play that my sister-in-law is willing to embellish it a little. Madame Zhu looked at Huang Zhi, and Huang Zhi said, what you said is very true. His attitude was so sincere and earnest that Yu Fu laughed out loud. I'll just listen to these romances. But I wonder if Romance of the Three Kingdoms should also be changed like this? Even if Yu Fu and others did not mention the Three Kingdoms, Li Ju himself wanted to adapt the Three Kingdoms. Hearing this was exactly what he wanted. It must be changed like this. Since the madam is willing to take over the adaptation of 3 words and 2 shots, I will work with the storyteller to adapt the Three Kingdoms into a few good plays. First, let the storyteller select several plays and make the stories even. Then, invite those scholars who can write poems and lyrics and are not as vulgar as us to change the performances. Hire a few smart children from outside and pair them with a few masters to teach the charm, movements, demeanor, and singing, and invite a few musicians who play the hukin and bamboo pipes to use a local folk songs and wild tunes to revise a background music. When all aspects are put together, it will definitely be a good play. I even thought of the name of this play. It can't be called a variety show, nor can it be considered a tansy, so it's called Kingshan Opera. Huang Zhi, Yu Fu and others really couldn't think of what this combination would be, and they couldn't help but look forward to it. Li Ju said that the performance on the stage was a grassroots troupe, but even such a grassroots troupe could show the charm of drama. In ancient times, there was not much entertainment, and a new tansy was enough to attract a lot of attention, let alone such a drama. As he was talking, the intermission scenery had been changed. The odd jobs relit the candles on the stage, and the actors were reflected again. Du Xiniang and Li Jia had changed into elegant street clothes, standing on the prop boat decorated with bamboo strips and coarse cloth, singing about the scenery of the Kingshan area. After just one song, the little girl Xiaoxiu took the flute and supported it, which meant a change of scenes. On the other side of the stage, the villain Sun Fu also appeared. Sun Fu was played by Chu Sanlang. Chu Sanlang had been running around outside for a year, and he was brave and smart. He played the cunning and dandy young man vividly, which immediately raised everyone's expectations to the highest level. The following plot took a sharp turn. How Sun Fu slandered Li Jia, using Li Jia's majestic old father as an introduction, to induce him to pawn his concubine. How Li Jia was soft-hearted, and listened to Sun Fu's lies, and really sold Du Xiniang to him. How Du Xiniang was so strong-willed. How she scolded the two, and finally jumped into the river with a treasure chest worth thousands of gold. At this point in the story, sentimental people couldn't help but shed tears. And those with a bad temper, while scolding Sun Fu for being a piece of shit and Li Jia for being a person, picked up melon peels and fruit peels, and threw them at Sun Fu and Li Jia. Because Li Ju was sitting in the front row, he was almost hit by the people behind him. In the end, the storyteller came up to make some jokes, and then brought everyone out of the story a little bit, and let the people on the stage perform the last part, which was that Yu Yaoniang, a friend who helped Li Jia redeem Du Xiniang, received the jewelry given by Du Xiniang's ghost in his dream, and mentioned the last ending poem. The story of Du Xiniang is extremely classic, and it is easy to resonate with, and be liked by all kinds of people. After the curtain fell, the storyteller still came out to host the show, dragging his time to clean up the stage, to facilitate the next show. Mrs. Zhu wiped her eyes, and turned to Li Ju. Alas, this Yu Yaoniang should have gone with Yu Yaoniang. It would be great if a man with a sense of righteousness and a chivalrous spirit were paired with her. How could she meet such a coward? Are other stories like this in your book? Li Ju picked out popular masterpieces such as The Injustice of Dai, The Lock of the Unicorn, and Five Daughters paying homage to their parents as the content of the same book, and briefly mentioned them to Mrs. Zhu. Mrs. Zhu was happy and sad at the same time when she heard it. Even Huang Zhi and Yu Fu couldn't help but feel that these little children's behavior seems to have great stories to tell, not to mention Mrs. Zhu, who wished she could take a pen and tell these stories on the spot to polish them a little. Li Ju saw this and felt relieved. Most of the people present were ordinary people. They could enjoy the play, which showed that what he had created had folk roots and viability. It also attracted Yu Fu, Huang Zhi, Madame Zhu and others to write about it, which showed that these stories could be spread among scholars and other nobles. If you take care of everything, you can succeed. Maybe he can really set up a few opera troupes, make money, support a group of cultural and entertainment workers, and spread education. In addition to cock crows at midnight, he also has white-haired girl, Xianglin Sao, blessing, tea house, thunderstorm and other stories. Maybe the effect will not be seen in 10 or 8 years, but as long as these stories can be passed down and seen by later generations, sooner or later they will give birth to some new thinking, which is the spark that Li Ju expects and is extremely difficult to see in his own lifetime. Chapter 120, New Year 6, End. The story of Yu Yaoniang actually still does not deviate from the category of talented scholars and beautiful women, but Yu Yaoniang's experience is somewhat critical, which is enough to jump out of other talented scholars and beautiful women routines. The rebellious spirit of Cock Crows at Midnight is more direct and intense. Its main plot is how several oppressed farmhands use tricks to punish the landlords who abuse farmhands. Huang Zhi and Yufu felt that Zhao Peiopi in the story was too bad. He was really a miser with no courtesy, righteousness, integrity, and shame. On the other hand, they felt that the farmhands' treatment of their masters was also against the principles of heaven and human ethics. It was justifiable and the punishment should be lighter. After the Spring Festival Gala, Li Yuan set off fireworks for a long time, showing the whole city a new experience with colorful lights. Everyone waited for dawn in the courtyard. After the excitement just passed, people felt more tired. In order to resist sleepiness, people gathered in groups of 3 or 2 to chat and pass the time. Huang Zhi and Yufu could not help but discuss the story of the Cock Crows at Midnight with Li Ju. Yaoniang's story is excellent. We admire her perseverance and courage after reading it. But the second story is not so good. Since those people are already slaves of the master, they should naturally obey the master's orders. If they can't get along, they can pay the ransom money and ask to leave on their own. It is also appropriate. Here it is written that they are committing crimes against their superiors. Isn't it a violation of the law? With such a master, slaves are abused, even if they have done nothing wrong. If they are caught with this handle, even if they are beaten to death, no one will care. It is better to change it and just make it a different story so that Zhao Peiopi will wake up and turn over a new leaf. Li Ju almost blurted out the weakness of and said, it is a story for the common people and it has a different origin from Yu Yaoniang. It also has a different destination. The poorer the people, the more difficult it is for them to understand the enlightenment that brother mentioned. In order to make them happy, the story is deliberately told in such a simple and crude way. If the bad guys that brother mentioned are to change their ways and become a new man, and the characters strictly abide by the etiquette of respecting the hierarchy, there are already some, and they are being written. Li Ju hurriedly told a few reunion stories, such as Jiang Xing reunites with the pearl shirt and the oil seller monopolizes a courtesan, which took the topic further away, which discouraged the two from pursuing the topic. Huang Zhi and Yufu thought that Li Ju really picked up the story at random to satisfy the poor people, so they did not pursue it and only discussed the matter of the opera troupe with great interest. Nowadays, there are too few entertainment activities. It is better during the New Year's Day, when the market is bustling, and the performers in the brothels and theaters always have to beg for food. On non-New Year's Day and non-festival days, apart from the singing and dancing girls hired by the wealthy families, at most they would invite a few female teachers to sing a few tansi and play the hukin, or perform acrobatics and storytelling, which is not very common. The Qingshan opera that Li Ju created has a very popular face. If he can put some effort into it and leave a name for himself, it will be romantic. Li Ju mentioned the talents he needed, and Huang Zhi took the initiative to collect them. As for the storyteller, your families is the best, so use him. I'll go find the scholar who can write poems and lyrics. You can only ask me for this matter. I know 100 kinds of people, and who knows what kind of temper the scholar you find has. If he doesn't do well, he will ignore your matter and do it perfunctorily. Wouldn't it be a waste of such a good story? So I have to go, and I promise to get it done for you. As for those who can teach body rhythm, there is no need to bother others. Let dyeing and weaving Chen go. He usually goes everywhere and meets everyone when he is doing business. Those experts in playing lyrics and singing, old and ugly dancers, and singing girls who can't get food without becoming the head of the troupe, just ask a few of them, and that will be enough. Otherwise, there is your senior brother Yu. Master used to keep some actors in the family. Let him go and get a few good ones, it's reasonable. Yu Fu smiled bitterly and said, you are really Forget it, I will go, if I want to, but I dare not say that it is what I want. I can only say that it is what you want. Go back tomorrow to wish the old man a happy new year. You must be the first. Huang Zhi did not care. I will take the lead, as long as we arrange a good show. The master will be happy. How can he say that I'm a hindrance? So the matter was settled for the time being. On the afternoon of the first day of the new year, Dying and Weaving Chin came to play early. He had a close relationship with Li Ju, and he did not come on the second or third day of the new year like the other families. The excitement of Lee Garden last night had already spread, and Dying and Weaving Chen was itching to see some new plays. Dying and Weaving Chen thought that, since Huang Zhi and his wife were both in Lee Garden anyway, it would be okay for him to bring his wife with him, so he brought his family with him. He put down the gifts, smiled as he watched his children receive the New Year's money from Li Ju, and said, "Good brother, I heard that your family got a new troupe yesterday. No one has seen it before. Can you let me open my eyes to it?" Huang Zhi, Zhu and others were also a little reluctant to leave, and urged Li Ju to ask the people who were on the stage last night to perform again. Li Ju had no choice but to ask housekeeper Wu to ask the actors what they thought, and after they said yes, he said, "Since they are willing to perform, please invite brother Chen and sister-in-law to watch it together. Dinner is also there, so there is no need to make another fuss. Speaking of which, I have something else to ask you. After you finish watching the play, we will talk about it in detail." Dying and Weaving Chen's vision is not as good as Huang Zhi's. How can Dying and Weaving Chen not like the play that Huang Zhi and his wife both said was good? As expected, after the performance of Du Xinyang, Ran Si Chen sighed, "This is a good idea, really good. The play script should be performed like this to be good. But it is too crude. It is a waste of such a good play." Huang Zhi said, "That's why Bo Xiu said he wanted to talk to you about it. Bo Xiu also felt sorry for it, so I hope you can help me to tidy up this play and make it a Qingshan opera, so that we can also go to other places to become famous." Li Ju followed Huang Zhi's words and told Ran Xichin all his plans. What kind of play script? What kind of lines? Body movements? Civil and martial arts? What kind of music? After all, there must be a team of more than 10 people. He added, "If it really works, I will be the one who pays and gives advice, so naturally I should be the owner of the troupe. But the troupe needs a nominal owner to take care of the communication affairs. I can't spare the energy for this, and I don't have such a person under my command. You have to do it, brother." Dying and Weaving Chen patted his chest and said, "No problem, no problem. It's just a few people, don't worry, I will find them for you before the first month of the year. Whether they are useful or not is another matter, but at least I can give you a start." Li Ju nodded with satisfaction. The four men got together, and with Zhu and Mrs. Chen's occasional remarks, they decided on the first few stories to be revised, and selected the address of the so-called stage according to Li Ju's needs. By then, Li Ju would have the storyteller to help him adapt the stories, and the stage outside could be built, so that both would not be delayed. Dying and Weaving Chen's visit was a signal. After the first day of the new year, Lee Garden became lively. The four local companies accepted the cement recipe as a favor. The money they made was a small matter. The main thing was that the cement was good and the production capacity was small. Those who were in a hurry to buy cement did a lot of favors for them. In the past 6 months, the contacts between the companies were quite close. Every move of Li Yuan was the focus of their attention. Seeing that the Dying and Weaving Chen had made some moves again, the companies could not sit still and came to the door to keep in touch and see if they could get a share of the profits. In addition, there were also favors from outsiders in the flow of long-term and short-term workers. There was no moment for the people in Li Yuan to be idle. Every wedding and funeral in Li Yuan affected the joys and sorrows of at least one family. Chapter 121 Returning Home in Glory 1. The matchmakers in Qingshan City have been very busy recently. In the first month of the lunar year, after the new year, it is the season for visiting relatives and friends. Everyone is more active, and children of marriageable age can meet each other. It is the peak season for matchmakers in the surrounding villages to find people. Miss Acui, who plays the heroine in Du Xinyang, signed the marriage certificate with her fiancé under the witness of Li Ju, and they are just waiting to get married. Li Ju asked a lot of random questions in a foolish manner. The matchmaker wanted to laugh, but did not dare to offend him, so she had to explain to him everything that happened. Of course, the marriage certificate must be stamped by the government to be recognized, and the same goes for the divorce certificate, the divorce certificate, and the divorce certificate. The bride price is certainly not low, and the dowry is also necessary. You should give as much as you get. If the dowry is too little, it's like selling a daughter, not marrying her off. If the dowry is too little, the daughter won't be able to hold her head up when she goes to her husband's house. Oh, my master is really the young master of a wealthy family. You naturally don't know about the wedding arrangements in our humble family. It's the parents' orders and the matchmaker's words. As parents, they always hope that their daughters will have a good life. How can they not choose a good son-in-law? It's just that we don't have a daughter of our own. Otherwise, we will be willing to give it to your family. These were the original words that the matchmaker said to tease Li Ju on the day after Yui got married. There was nothing wrong with the words, and Li Ju just thought it was funny. Those who couldn't help but come to watch the fun looked at Li Ju with teasing eyes, which made Li Ju feel uncomfortable. After sending the groom off, he went to hide. There were so many people in Lee Garden who felt uncomfortable being looked at. In the past, Lee Garden took in poor people who had nowhere else to go. Except for housekeeper Wu, who came with his family. The others didn't have a family, even if they had one before. Since he had fallen to the point of being taken in by Lee Garden, it would be gone. A year later, these people had unknowingly become popular in the marriage market. Those who stayed in Lee Garden were fine. Some had settled it internally, some hadn't thought about it yet, and the very few who had thought about starting a family had no place to go for a while because they were unfamiliar with the place and had to rely on neighbors and matchmakers to help them make it happen. The matchmakers also coveted the 100 or so singles in Lee Garden. If they could help a few couples, how could they not get a small amount of red envelopes from the matchmakers and Mr. Lee? They could also get a few meals of good wine and meat. In the past, they were scared when they saw the door of Lee Garden. Who dared to come? They could only deal with the temporary workers. It was the first time that Lee Garden held a wedding. They had the opportunity to get close to the people of Lee Garden, especially the amiable Mr. Lee. This contact was not a blessing from heaven. Not to mention the dozens of single men and women in the garden. Not to mention that there were many single men and women in the garden who had already fallen in love with each other, and each elder made the decision and only needed a matchmaker to go through the procedures. Let's talk about Mr. Lee. He was still a single dog when the servants of Lee Garden held a wedding. Mr. Lee gave the matchmaker red envelopes of 3 teals of silver. When it was his turn, wouldn't it be 30 teals? The matchmakers looked at Li Ju with green eyes, as if a hungry wolf looked at a lamb. This was the case for the long-term workers who stayed behind, and even more so for those who return home. This is the case with Jeteng, who sent Li Ju a few geese and puppies and cats. He was only 13 or 14 years old, and was considered a child by Li Ju. Outside, Jeteng would be a teenager, old enough to get married, but in Lee Garden, he was still the child who had to enjoy the special treatment of a boiled egg a day. After staying in Lee Garden for a long time, he had become accustomed to treating himself as a child. In the first month of the year, he returned home with New Year's goods, and was warmly received by his family. Because he voluntarily sold himself to the pawnbroker for money, the Jia family finally breathed a sigh of relief. Dad Jia worked hard for a year and harvested a few more buckets of grain so the family could have a full meal for the new year. Although Nyang Jia was still weak, at least her life was saved, and she was able to make 2 sets of clothes for her son whom she had not seen for half a year. The little sister also survived. She looked very thin and her voice was timid and weak, but at least she survived. Jeteng was very satisfied with all this. Jia's father and mother were even more satisfied. Since their son went out to work as a servant, they had not slept well as a parent. They were worried about whether their son would be beaten or scolded outside, whether he would get sick and no one would take care of him. How could they feel at ease? During the year, Jeteng would ask the peddlers and relatives in the city to bring them some things every month or so. In the middle of the year, Jeteng hurriedly asked someone to come back and exchange a few small livestock for them. It seemed that there should be no problem. After all, they had not seen him and had no idea. This time, their son finally came back, and they could feel at ease in the eyes of their parents. After taking a closer look at their son, they found that he had grown a lot taller and stronger after a year away. His cheeks were fleshier and his eyes were brighter. Jess' father and mother were happy. "It's good that you're back. Look, this is the cloth you asked someone to bring back last time. I'll make you 2 new clothes that are comfortable to wear. They will look good when you go out to visit relatives." Jess' mother took the new clothes she had altered and happily tried them on her son. Unexpectedly, the sleeves of the clothes and the legs of the pants were 3 inches shorter. Yaoniang said, "I made them bigger on purpose, but why are they still small? Good boy, you've grown so big. Taller than your father." Jess' father had been digging for food in the fields all his life and had long been bent by the heavy burden of life. Hearing this, he said, "It's better to be taller than me. I will protect you and your mother in the future." One day, Jeteng had developed a lively personality in Li Yuan. When he heard his father was going to say his last words as usual, he hugged his father and mother together and said with a smile, "If it's too small, give it to your sister to wear. Otherwise, mother can give me a younger brother and he can wear it. I will work outside and you two can enjoy a comfortable life. I can make the food for my sister and brother. From now on, our family will never suffer from hunger and cold again." Yaoniang smiled. "You want to fly before your wings are strong. Let's not stand, you sit. Let your mother take a good look at you. I miss you so much after not seeing you for so many days." Father Jay was too embarrassed to say it, and judging from his expression, his wife's expression was the same. "What's so good about me? Why don't you take a look at the New Year's goods that the master gave me? Everyone in our Lee family has it. Because I learned well from my senior brother, I have more than others." Jeteng sat down on the bamboo bed, put the New Year's goods on the ground, and held his sister in his arms to let his parents look at her. Li Ju often carried Miss Yuan around the garden, and Jeteng knew how to hold a child after seeing so many times. His sister only moved slightly in his arms and was still sleeping soundly, not waking up. Father Jay and Mother Jay had seen enough of their son, so they remembered to pack up the things he brought back. This time they felt it was extraordinary. Jeteng brought back 2 bamboo baskets, which contained rice, flour, salt, oil, meat, poultry, eggs, fish, and even cotton clothes. The rice was refined rice, the meat was 2 pieces of fat meat, 1 smoked and 1 fresh, 2 slaughtered fat chickens, frozen white feathered chickens from the warehouse, 20 eggs, and 2 large bluefish, which were enough for his family to eat until February. In addition, there were 2 jars filled with unknown things. They looked like they were made of iron, but no one knew what they were filled with. There was a note on the jars with a few small pictures drawn on them, but old Jack couldn't understand it. Jeteng took the note from his father, and it turned out to be the instructions written by Li Ju. Li Ju knew that his family had a new sister, so he took out 2 cans of milk powder for Jeteng from the small treasury. Jeteng was silent for a while, then said happily, "This is what the master gave to my sister. This is called milk powder. We use this to entertain guests in our garden. The elderly and children can also get some every month. I heard that it is milk that has been dried and stored. As long as it is dissolved with hot water, it is no different from real milk and is very nourishing. This can't be stored for long, so you have to drink it as soon as possible. Its lid should be opened like this. Mother, watch carefully and do it like this in the future." Yaoniang was worried about insufficient milk. Although rice porridge and the like can fill the belly, they can't raise a child. When she learned that there was this, she was overjoyed. She hurriedly got up to make milk powder for the little girl. "Oh, the master is really, what can I say, he thinks of you everywhere." Under her son's instruction, she soaked the milk powder, cooled it, and fed it to her daughter 1 spoonful at a time. She then said, "Your aunt heard that you brought those things back this year, and that our family would be able to live a good life. She wanted to marry your cousin to you. Your father and I thought it was a good idea. What can you get from working for someone else's family or your life than suffering? It would be better to save some money, buy some land, and come back to live your own life. Now it seems that we were wrong. Your master has been very good to you. You must repay him well. Chapter 122 Returning Home and Glory 2. Jeteng's aunt married in the neighboring village, and the two families were separated by a valley. Last year, Yaoniang had a difficult childbirth, and the family was so poor that they could not continue. So the aunt's side stopped communicating, and the whole year passed, and the relationship was just indifferent. Je's father and mother could understand the difficulties of this sister. Her parents-in-law were both alive, and she had 2 elderly parents and 3 daughters. She was suffering because she did not give birth to a son for her husband's family. Her family only had a few acres of land, and it was also damaged by a landslide last year. Although the family was not destroyed, they could not afford more. So, because of the long-term infertility, Je's aunt still pawned a woman from another family to give birth to a son for her husband. At this time, she was pregnant, and Je's aunt took good care of her, fearing that the child would be lost. For various reasons, when Yaoniang got into trouble, Je's aunt had to choose to cut off contact. Je's aunt avoided seeing, both because of her inner shame, and because she was worried that it would be too embarrassing to be borrowed by her brother and sister-in-law for food and clothing, but she could not afford to eat or drink. Later, Jeteng carried things home every other month, and the Je family got through the hard times again, so Aunt Je occasionally came to visit. But because they had avoided each other before, this occasional visit was also awkward. The source of Aunt Je's mention of the marriage was the long-term worker in Lee Garden in their village. The girl named Gizzy was originally an orphan, and she also lost her parents. Her family property was fought over by her clansmen, and she was sold to Jeteng's village as a child bride. Fortunately, Jeteng heard that there was a great kind-hearted person in the town, so she sold herself to the pawn shop, was appreciated, and was kept by Li Ju, and changed her fate from then on. Jeteng found that this way was feasible, so she rescued Gizzy, who was almost desperate because of the abuse of the buyer, and sent her to Lee Garden, which was recruiting workers. Gizzy worked with Yu Yaoniang and others in Lee Garden. She was really almost beaten to death. Once she left Lee Garden, she couldn't imagine what kind of experience would be waiting for her outside. Gizzy wanted to prove that she was valuable, so she rushed to do any job and learn any skills. She was not a smart person, but she forced herself to be smart in order to survive. She did not have the courage of Yaoniang, nor the talent of Sanjiu, nor the cuteness of Xiaolian and others. She was submissive and endured the hardships. In this way, she caught up with Li Yuan's progress and became a backbone female worker in Sanjiu's clothing shop. Because she could do any job, she was regarded as the best substitute for various things. Li Ju actually knew that she was a slow learner. She just swallowed all the knowledge taught in class without knowing the truth. But Li Ju did not expect everyone to become talented men and beautiful women. He just hoped that they would learn more knowledge that they should learn. For Gizzy, there are many people who are similar to Gizzy. Li Ju saw their desire to survive, and that was enough. In short, Gizzy stayed in Li Yuan for only 3 months. Because she was quick and stubborn, she was appreciated by housekeeper Wu and Wang Dechen, so they were always tolerant of her. Gizzy was holding back her anger. Last month, she received the first dividend from Music clothing store. Including bonuses and wages, the money was about 8 taels of silver. She asked Li Ju for advice on what to do. After receiving Li Ju's advice, she took out all the silver, plus a piece of cloth she had saved for making clothes, asked Wang Dechen to be the middleman, hired a few men from the pawn shop, and returned to the village in a rage. That day, Aunt Je watched Gizzy, the most pitiful little girl in the village, come back with her men, and beat those village sages and clan uncles who were usually domineering on the ground, forcing them to return all the property of Gizzy's family that they had swallowed up. Gizzy had decided to stay in Li Yuan no matter what, and would never go back to her hometown. So she took her family property and sold it at a low price to a man who was willing to adopt her parents as a filial son. In the village, whoever has more sons can be domineering. Those families with more sons can get a few acres of land for free if they have a son who calls others father and mother. There was no one who would refuse. There was a man who was older than Gizzy's father who kowtowed to the graves of Gizzy's parents and called them father and mother. Gizzy did not hesitate and gave all the family property deeds in her hand to that man. After venting her anger, Gizzy returned to Lee Yuan under the escort of the hired men, leaving a group of confused people in the whole village. After Gizzy left, the rest of the people pieced together the news. She must have met a rich patron in the brothel. She will have to come back to make a living in a few years. Nonsense. The big guy who came with her said no. She has a good boss in the city who gives her money and finds her a man. Where is there such a boss? You forgot the kind-hearted Lee Yuan. They said she was Lee Yuan's girl. Lee Yuan. I remember now. The guy across the street is in Lee Yuan, and he brings home a bowl of meat and a piece of clothing every month. Yes, that's right. That's the case. So rich, Gizzy has risen to a high position. The shameless Liuoc deserves to be beaten into a mangy dog. Aunt Jess suddenly remembered. The guy across the street, wasn't he her nephew? Because the two families didn't have much contact, she was embarrassed, so she would avoid him. When she heard about Jeteng's family, she didn't know about Jeteng bringing things home, so she hurriedly grabbed the man to find out clearly. The man enviously described how Jeteng had sent gifts to his family, how his family had recovered, and so on. He told Aunt Je all kinds of things one by one. At the end, he said to Aunt Je with an unknown heart, alas, if you had gone to his house at that time, even if it was just to help take care of his mother, Jeteng would have been kind-hearted and would have respected you. You are also unlucky. Aunt Je was ashamed, angry, and regretful, and she went home with a blush. When she got home, she saw that there was a hole in the roof and she couldn't buy tiles to patch it, so she could only use thatch to deal with it. Compared with Giz's arrogant look today, Aunt Je's regret became stronger and stronger, and she couldn't help but shed tears. Her husband tried to persuade her with some kind words, but Aunt Je couldn't help but tell the truth. Naturally, her husband regretted it. If I had known that he would be like this, I should have helped him. But at that time, we were almost starving to death, so who could do anything about it? Aunt Je didn't think so either, and tears flowed from her eyes. Unexpectedly, the woman who had pawned a son said, "This is a good thing. Why can't my elder brother and sister-in-law understand it?" She kept it a secret, and when Aunt Je and her husband asked about it, she smiled and said, "Since my elder sister-in-law's nephew has such a good place to go, and is still young, he can work for 3 to 5 years, and save some money. He must go home, to settle down the family property. How can he work as a long-term worker for others all his life? Our daughter is old enough, why not marry into his family? Since the brother and sister have become in-laws, can we still talk about the two families?" Aunt Je went to see her daughter Dea, who was 3 years older than Jeteng. She was thin and small, and looked honest. It was indeed time for them to meet. Yes, why not tell Jeteng? Jeteng's parents are good people. In the past, they didn't have to be bullied by her mother-in-law, and they could also bring some things home. Not to mention anything else. Every month when Jeteng brought home meat, this girl could always bring back 2 pieces for her brother to eat, right? So Aunt Je packed up and started to visit Dad Je's family again. When she started to visit again, she mentioned this matter. Of course, the matchmaker she found had to make a good story, describing the marriage as Jeteng is old. It would be bad if he was dazzled by the fairies outside. It would be best to find an honest and decent girl to stay at home. He can work outside and there will be someone to take care of him at home, so he can feel at ease. With a wife, he can also settle down. Dea is one of our family members, and the family is flesh and blood. Naturally, she will be on the side of her uncle, unlike the outsiders who may still miss their mother's family and so on. It happened that at this time, several families in the village also mentioned Jeteng's marriage intentionally or unintentionally. Dad Je and Mom Je naturally preferred their own sister in their hearts. No matter how disappointing this sister was, it was better than the outsiders. So Dad Je and Mom Je were moved. There was no news before Jeteng returned home, so Dad Je and Mom Je did not make any preparations. They were also thinking that, when Dea's family came to pay New Year's greetings in a few days, they would let them get to know each other, and if they didn't dislike each other, they would settle the marriage. When Jeteng heard his mother say, "I want to marry your cousin to you," he remembered the harm of inbreeding mentioned by Li Ju in the biology class when he talked about the root cause of species degeneration. His face turned green, and he said hurriedly, "Of course I have to repay the master. My marriage will be decided by the master in the future." The master will find a good girl who suits my heart and mind. Dad and mom, you don't have to worry about it. My aunt just said that my indenture contract is still with Masterly, and I must not agree to this matter without the master's permission. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123, Transition to Spring Plowing. Using Lichu as an excuse to fend off all the matchmakers and temptations, Jeteng's matter finally came to an end. He stayed at home for a few days, bored and disturbed by all kinds of people. Seeing that everything was fine at home, he simply returned to Lee Garden in advance. Jeteng's parents were not determined. Seeing that their son had made a good career, they only listened to their son, so Jeteng was able to get away easily. Other people in Lee Garden, especially the girls, were not so lucky. According to the contract signed when everyone entered Lee Garden, they had to work for 10 or 8 years before leaving. Li Ju did not actually execute this time, so some people redeemed themselves and left after the Chinese New Year, and Li Ju did not stop them. It is a pity that most of the girls who went home did not come back, with only 3 exceptions. One was the orphan Gizzy. There was no one in her family. She was alone and could go wherever she wanted, and no one stopped her. One was a hot-tempered person. She was originally sent to the landlord's house by her family to pay off a debt. It was coincidental that Wu Guanjie asked Li Ju to keep her. This girl quarreled with her family for the entire New Year and finally broke up completely so that she could return to the Li family on time. The other one was honest and decent, but ugly, and had been rejected 3 times. Her family saw that she could make money in Lee Garden, and she was really not good enough to get a betrothal gift, so they let her come back. The chicken feather room found more than a dozen people who were willing to sign the contract, and they just had to wait until the 15th day of the month to send them over. So, according to Li Ju's plan, there were still about a dozen people missing. Li Ju learned from Wang Dejun that there were vacancies in the new year. Looking at the list of people who never returned, he frowned for the first time, so we know that increasing their income from work is the way to get them to leave the land and devote themselves to our family's business. Wang Dejun didn't quite understand what he said and probably knew that this meant a wage increase, so he said, "What does it matter? Even if you pay them a higher wage, they can't see that far ahead. It's good for a girl to work for you and bring something home every year. But how many years can this be good? What if she's gone next year? What if her family needs money now? If you marry this girl off, you can still keep it, and the betrothal gift of 30 taels of silver is enough to buy a few acres of land. So why do the girl's parents have to wait for an accident that may or may not happen in a few years, instead of marrying her off now? This is the reality of girls. Men are actually not much different, they are just delayed by short-sightedness." Li Ju paused while marking the names of the people and arranged them in groups. He said, "If 1 year doesn't work, then 2 years will do. If 2 years doesn't work, then 3 years will do. As long as they want to be self-reliant, our family will create conditions for them to be self-reliant. The obstruction of their parents and family members is just obstruction. They grit their teeth and persevere for 1 or 2 years, and after 3 or 5 years, their families will believe that we are a good way out. The most important thing is that they themselves don't know how far Li Yuan can go, so naturally they can't persist. If there is a way out, then why not retreat back? This kind of thing can't be reversed by talking, and we can only put the future in their daily meals and monthly wages to show them. The 5 words time reveals a person's heart, don't they fall on time? Li Yuan has been bustling until the end of the first month of the lunar year. Even County Magistrate Wang couldn't help but come to watch the play on the 3rd day of the first lunar month. Li Ju arranged a show for the old man and found that the 2 plays at home had spread throughout Kingshan County and nearby places through word of mouth and the scrolling lanterns outside the door. A professional team should be raised anyway. After asking for the opinions of several actors, Li Ju retained those who wanted to continue acting and recruited other necessary talents from outside and formed a team before the 15th day of the first lunar month. 10 days later, these people learn two elegant plays, Yu Yaoniang and Running to the Moon. The former is closer to drama, and the latter is closer to dance drama. The two plays use the same group of musicians, but the actors are not repeated at all. Then Li Ju built a stage between two display boards outside the main gate, and performed to shows every day, which made the people of Qingshan County happy for more than 10 days. In the last days of the first lunar month, Qingshan County was like a city that never sleeps. Li Yuan specially made rabbit lanterns and zodiac lanterns illuminated the night into day. Those beautiful lanterns, as Li Ju hoped, also became one of the specialties of Qingshan County. Li Yuan made lanterns just for fun, and had no intention of expanding production. The excess market was taken by bamboo craftsmen and lantern paste people in Qingshan County. The stories of the running lantern and the stories on the stage are repeated over and over again, but the audience never tires of watching them. If outsiders pass by and want to see something new, the people of Qingshan County who are already familiar with the movements of each actor will proudly hold their heads high and give a good popular science lecture on the troupe of Lee Garden. The most lively season has passed, and the aftermath continues for a long time. It is not until the arrival of spring plowing that people wake up from the comfortable entertainment and continue to devote themselves to the new year's hard work. The spring plowing of Lee Garden is something that the entire Qingshan County, even Yu Yaoniang who is far away in Jinling, cares about. As who kept a farming diary of Lee Garden last year, and he has to continue to keep it this year. Let alone them, even Li Ju himself, he has no idea. He doesn't know whether the seeds sown last year will degenerate this year. Last year, the soil was depleted, and this year no chemical fertilizers were used to pile up the soil. Instead, soil fertilizers fermented from human and animal feces were used. Li Ju didn't know what effect it would have. The agricultural students he led and Yu Fu had already believed in the concept of heredity. The results of planting peas last year were there, and the gender and various genetic traits of the newborn babies also confirmed the correctness of heredity, which made them believe it. Now they have understood and accepted the possibility of seed degeneration, but they are still very confused about how to reverse the degeneration and even cultivate more and better varieties. No matter how many questions there are, spring plowing must continue. The land must continue to be planted, and the people who record the planting must continue to write records. Yu Fu wrote a diary of what he saw and heard in Lee Garden, and sent a copy to Jinling every 10 days. He is not very smart, but he is very serious, patient, and careful. He will not exaggerate or omit anything. He is used to recording what he sees and hears in a plain and straightforward style, unlike Huang Zhi who has his own literary talent, and unlike Wang County Magistrate, Sima County Magistrate and others who are biased. Therefore, Yu Yaoniang is very confident in Yu Fu's diary. Li Ju and Lee Garden described by Yu Fu make Yu Yaoniang feel more confident than the stalks written by Huang Zhi. Huang Zhi's account only has the results, not the process, and the results given by Li Yuan are too perfect, so it is inevitable that they lose their sense of reality. Yu Fu, on the other hand, recorded every detail in a solid and detailed manner. Yunan looked at his son's records, as if he had personally experienced everything in Li Yuan. Yu Fu copied all of Li Yuan's textbooks, plays, etc. to Yunan. These more concise and systematic knowledge are more like the entry-level academic theories of a doctrine than miscellaneous studies of 100 schools. Yu Fu's major is biological agronomy, and the most recorded knowledge in the diary is also in this field, especially the genetics they are mainly studying. Along with the letter came a packet of experimental results peas, and the characteristics of the first and second generation peas were completely consistent with the theory of genetics. At the end of the diary, some basic knowledge about the human body was mentioned. Looking at these, Yunan couldn't help but fall into deep thought for the countless times since he knew about Li Yuan's existence. Chapter 124, Those Little Things During the Spring Plowing Period. This year, Li Ju did not keep a close eye on the spring plowing himself, but sent a few agricultural students to watch. Li Ju himself mainly focused on three things: new textbooks and new stories, river channels and oil pressing. New stories and new textbooks are related to the opera troupe, and there are storytellers in Tuangzi. Li Ju only sorted out a few representative stories of San Inope and handed them over to them to perform. The river channel dredging in Yu is done in winter, just like other places. For a long time after the autumn harvest, the long-term workers in Huangshan, in addition to daily firing of cement honeycomb coal, cleared the river channel and built a dam according to Li Ju's ideas to store water into a reservoir. Oil pressing is another important thing. The oil pressing tools were designed as early as last year. The carpenters and blacksmiths took some detours when they did this for the first time. It was not until after the new year that the first complete set of oil pressing tools was delivered to Li Ju. Li Ju placed the set of oil pressing tools in the factory building beside the river channel in Yu and only waited for the rapeseed to mature before putting it into press oil. He used all the peanuts harvested last year as seeds, leaving no part for oil pressing. Nowadays, sesame, tea seeds, etc. are mostly used for oil extraction. The yield is small and precious, so most people are reluctant to use them. The oil extraction equipment made by Li Ju can at least double the oil yield. Although it consumes more firewood and manpower, people at that time are willing to do so. Li Ju asked carpenters and blacksmiths to make a traditional oil extraction set that is more common in later generations. It has steps such as steaming, drying, rolling, and pressing. As long as there are enough laborers, it can be put into operation. However, manpower is limited after all, and local officials may not be willing to see farmers leave the land. So after consulting some carpenters and blacksmiths, Li Ju asked them to switch to physics and try to change several labor-intensive steps of oil extraction to water power. The craftsmen were busy learning new knowledge. Li Ju took advantage of the little time after the autumn harvest and before the spring plowing to personally lead people to clean up the river channel of Yu. They built a small dam with cement concrete, made this small reservoir upstream, and also tidied up the banks, reinforcing what needed to be reinforced, and planting trees where needed. The reservoir was stocked with seedlings, and caged shrimps and crabs. Everyone didn't know whether shrimps and crabs could survive if they were raised this way. In the past, some people had a sudden idea to raise fish, shrimps, crabs and shellfish like livestock. They did this and had a good harvest in some years, but most years they lost all their money. However, everyone was still very convinced of Li Ju, and privately they all felt that Li Ju's method would definitely work. Dredging the river, cleaning the reservoir, stocking fish and crab fry. Before and after the spring plowing, there was work everywhere in Yu, and Li Ju even hired some temporary workers to help with the work. Most of the nearby farmers who had some free time came to join in the fun, and even County Magistrate Wang came to take a look when he was inspecting the preparations for the spring plowing and inspecting the farmland. He knew that Li Ju would give up the recipe for firing cement, and now the court may have obtained the recipe and is testing it. This thing is easy to use and everyone likes it. But water conservancy projects are different. In the sphere of influence of rainwater rivers, County Magistrate Wang did not know how good the cement was and whether it could withstand the test of heavy rain and water erosion. So every time he went out, he would deliberately go around Yu to have a look, to see if the dam built with cement was safe and sound, to see if there were any cracks on the river bank, and to see the people of Liyuan working hard on the mountain. He liked the energy of the people of Liyuan, a kind of enthusiasm rarely seen in other people, as if he saw hope for the future. After a spring rain, a layer of soft and short new seedlings emerged from the farmland. The water level in the small reservoir was sometimes high and sometimes low, while the river water downstream always maintained the same depth. The cement used to build the reservoir dam has withstood the test of this continuous spring rain. If it can also withstand the subsequent plum rain, in the eyes of County Magistrate Wang, it will be enough. The farmers downstream were once very worried that Li Ju would snatch water from them. Before the spring plowing began, the heads of the two villages downstream, along with their relatives, brought gifts and were led by lobbyists from the 4 prominent local families to greet Li Ju. They smiled and released the big white goose that they had finally gathered. They first praised Li Ju's reputation for kindness and benevolence, and then praised Li Ju's ability and wealth. Finally, they said earnestly, "We country people don't know what is good and what is bad. We heard from their village that your family adopted a few cats and dogs last year to guard the house. We thought that these things are also used for guarding the house, and we would kill them and stew them at the end of the year. It would be very good. So we brought them to honor the master and ask the master to take a look at something new. Li Ju didn't know the reason behind it, but Lo Wu guessed from the name of their village that they must have something to ask of Li Yuan, so he quietly gave Li Ju a few hints. As expected, after they finished their confession, they looked at Li Ju's face and said cautiously, "Look at the reservoir built by the mansion. The pool is made of such expensive cement. The master is really a wealthy family, very generous." After a lot of exaggerated praise, they finally dared to tell the real purpose. "But I don't know how much water the master's land uses." Butler Wu understood their intention and said, "You are asking in a roundabout way like this, and our master can't understand. I will say it for you, master. They want to ask if our reservoir can keep some water for the villages downstream to irrigate the land." The master didn't live in the village before, so he didn't know that the water source is the most important. Those neighboring villages can dig for a well or a spring. For example, our garden is twice as expensive as ordinary gardens because of the spring. Li Ju understood and replied quickly, "I should have told you first, but I was so hasty. The dam is built there to store water when there is a lot of rain, to prevent the river from flooding the crops on both sides of the downstream. When there is less rain, or when it is dry, water will be released. There is absolutely no intention to monopolize the water source. If you are worried, I can write a note for you to keep. If you need less water on weekdays, just tell the people in the mountain and they will naturally release it to you." Whether the people in the two villages downstream believed it or not, they were relieved by Li Ju's attitude. Li Ju remembered another thing. Now that the dam was built and the reservoir was blocked there, a drop in height was formed. It seemed that a simplified version of tap water could be installed. Li Ju missed the water and electricity system of later generations too much, but this has to be after the spring plowing. Now everyone is devoted to farming. Different crops have different growth times and need to be carefully cared for according to the crop's temperament. Everyone is so busy that even music clothing store rarely takes new jobs. How could there be anyone to get tap water for Li Ju? Chapter 125, Caring Eyes from the Capital. Because of the abundant rains this spring, there are inevitably small floods in various places, and there are countless dams that have collapsed, and houses that have collapsed. As in previous years, people used bricks and thatch to reinforce their houses and dams during the spring plowing, and they are very worried about this year's harvest. The news that Qingshan County has a kind of cheap mud that is very solid after drying has spread throughout the south of the Yangtze River, but the high price has made people sigh. The 4 families in Qingshan County who bought the cement recipe took over the entire Hualien Road market before Li Ju made the recipe public. Since cement is mainly produced near Qingshan County, the high toll has become its biggest cost. As the market gap becomes larger and larger, Li Ju has repeatedly hinted that they will partially disclose the recipe and asked them to prepare early. And this day is not too late. Cement has long been sent to the court through different channels by Yu Yaoniang, Sima Junshao, and the censor who inspected the local area, along with very critical information such as grain varieties and pin. The Ministry of Works was originally planning to wait a few more months before deciding whether to promote it to other places, but now it had to proceed ahead of schedule because of the heavy rain in the south of the Yangtze River. The chief clerks and assistant ministers of the Ministry of Works were worried. Cement was a new thing, and the recipe was very simple. They couldn't figure out why clay could become so strong after being fired in this way, and they couldn't figure out how the mud that was powdery when it came out of the furnace could become as hard as stone slabs after being mixed with water. If the durability of this thing could not stand the test, then the consequence of large-scale promotion would inevitably be large-scale rework, demolition and reconstruction, 3 times of tossing, labor and money. Their worries were not unreasonable, but the time did not give them time. Cement had been used on a small scale by the people to reinforce houses, dams, bridges, and roads, but larger scale construction could not be achieved by people's spontaneous actions, and there must be a higher level organization to start. So His Majesty the Emperor repeatedly confirmed the status of the cement pavement and canals in Kingshan City, which had been built for a year, and cautiously decided to hand over the cement formula to the local government officers, which would decide whether to use cement to reinforce roads, bridges, houses, dams, etc. according to local conditions. The price of cement was also sent along with the cement formula. The court uniformly stipulated that the price of cement in matters presided over by the government should not exceed 10 coins per bag. At the same time, private resale of the court's cement was strictly prohibited. However, the court's control over the local areas was not too strong, and this was the case in any era before the information age. There were always things like embezzlement and underhanded disobedience. As long as the final goal could be achieved, and there was no extreme public outrage, the central court would turn a blind eye and let it go. What surprised His Majesty the Emperor was that the creator of new things such as cement was the same person as the first copyist of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which he, the Queen, the Prince, and others had cursed for half a year. His Majesty the Emperor was very interested in Li Ju and asked Yunnan for some information. The letters back and forth were not enough, so the Emperor asked Yunnan to send the newspapers and magazines founded by Li Ju to the capital along with other new things. Yunnan did not dare to hide anything, because the information in his hands was not complete, such as the newspapers and books he had. So he also collected some from Huang Zhi, Sima Junshao and Yao Fu one after another. He compiled all the things Li Ju had done since he appeared in Kingshan, and all the books he had written, and sent them to the capital in several batches. Yunnan was very confident in Li Ju. In his eyes, Li Ju was a little stupid, and he was also a little dull, but he was rare to have a sincere heart. He distributed the things in his hands, because he really hoped that more people would live well, rather than seeking fame and fortune for himself. If a person has no greed for power and money, and has 8 points of respect and love for the people, he is probably not bad. Even if these things were sent to the capital by express post, it took less than a month, and every few days thereafter, other new things were delivered. His Majesty the Emperor was surprised at first, but later he became numb. So much so that, when Yunnan mentioned that the fashionable dresses that were popular in the south of the Yangtze River and had spread to the north were also made by Li Ju, His Majesty the Emperor did not find it absurd. Since Mr. Li did not distinguish between the rich and the poor, men and women, old and young, it was normal for him to make something new for women. This was how His Majesty the Emperor understood Li Ju. The more he saw, the more interesting this person was to him. County Magistrate Wang also mentioned one thing in his letter to Yunnan. In the late winter and early spring of this year, Li Ju led people to work on water conservancy in the river. He really knew how to work on the fields by himself, and even under normal circumstances, he was the first to roll up his pants to his knees and jump into the mud in the river, standing in the knee-deep mud to drive piles and put up fences, which made the young wives who followed him cry with heartache. County Magistrate Wang asked Yunnan if Li Ju was doing a favor, and Yunnan said no, and His Majesty the Emperor also thought it was not. Respecting the virtuous and humble, and Zhaogong spitting out food when feeding, are considered as favors, but they are also for the scholars. I have never heard of buying favors to buy from the farmhands and poor people. Now the world is peaceful, people will not rebel if they have food to eat. What is the use of buying such favors? He also has some strange and lewd skills, which are not worth mentioning in the heart of His Majesty. In the end, Li Ju's strange and lewd skills are all for the people's livelihood. Li Ju also taught these poor people to read, and they did not read the 4 books and 5 classics, but astronomy, geography, agronomy and engineering. This is a good thing. There are only so many official positions, and everyone can take the imperial examination, but I'm afraid there are not so many officials for people to do. It is good for ordinary people to learn some miscellaneous studies. Isn't it that some people who learn agronomy are studying how to grow crops? His Majesty is not interested in miscellaneous studies, but he is also happy to see the result. His Majesty did not quite understand the textbooks and miscellaneous studies of 100 schools compiled by Li Ju for Li Yuan. He sent these miscellaneous books and related tools to the Ministry of Works and ordered people from the Ministry of Works to study and explain them. The Emperor asked scholars to copy the romance of the three kingdoms, records of the Song dynasty and stories to enlighten the world, and prepared to send them to the empress, princesses and others to relieve their boredom. However, it happened that the emperor was sorting the things he received and sending them to his ministers for sorting and analysis. His children came to pay their respects and saw the new gadget in his hand, a microscope. They were all very curious. The older ones could still hold back their curiosity, but the two younger ones showed their curiosity on their faces and asked, "What is this? How is it useful?" and so on. The emperor fiddled with it for a while, but he really didn't understand how to use it, nor what a glass slide was. Seeing his children so interested, the emperor simply gave them the microscope and the instruction manual. "This is sent by Master Yu, and it's called a microscope. As the name suggests, it's a mirror that can see tiny things. If you find it fun, I'll give it to you to play with. Let a bear watch you, so don't hurt anything." The little princess tilted her head and said, "If we take it away, Dad will have none left, so you'd better leave it to Dad to play with." The emperor felt very relieved and pinched the little girl's chubby pink face, saying, "If I give it to you, it's yours. Daddy will ask Master Yu for another one. Go, just don't miss your studies. After class, we'll have dinner with the queen in the evening, and there will be snacks sent from outside the palace. Your Master Yu will praise it highly after eating it." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.